gorilla strength. You are now listening to the Gorilla Strength Podcast with your hosts, Scott Lamb, John Davis, and JT Donahue.
Back with another one, Gorilla Strength Podcast. We're here with the infamous Will Ramirez.
Notorious.
Just had to hit it, huh?
Is that right?
Put a
Is
little
that correct?
sazon on it.
Is that correct?
Not for me, no.
No. How-
It is Ramirez. Well, for me, it's always going to be Ramirez.
We're going to shorten it to Will Ram.
That's from when I was at 13. Yes. Yeah. So you still have that. I bet you know. From your MySpace account. So I didn't actually get on the social media until I was 19.
I was really late to the game.
How old are you now?
31.
31.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
few
Turning
years.
32 in September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday in September.
Thank you, yeah. Assuming I make it,
Happy
right?
late birthday
Yeah.
from last September.
Yeah, for sure. So, 175 competitor, another one of these guys. From Florida originally?
Yeah.
From Florida originally?
So let's look at your accolades. Did you ever do powerlifting?
No.
Okay, so strongman competitor,
Yes.
strongman promoter,
Yes.
maker of stones,
Stone maker up to the World Games, yes. for
Tacky.
OSG. Tacky, inventor of wet tacky. I think there's only a couple other companies that make it. One's way too good and one's way too shitty. I won't say who, but the one that's really shitty is...
Is yours a shitty one? Or?
No. It's a three-headed dog, so...
Nice.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, I should be more subtle. Hades is pet. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Their spray tacky is dog shit, and I can't believe he has the balls to charge people $14 for pine-scented hairspray, but I guess he can get away with it.
You know, I didn't even know that they made one.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I didn't.
I wish I had that kind of gumption to
I'm kind of
charge
one of those,
people for that trash.
I'm one of those guys, like, once I got on something, I just stuck with it. You know what I mean? Like,
100%. Well, and truth be told, when I first started, there was only Elite Tacky.
I used that for years. Dave Austin, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, I
And
remember
honestly,
that,
as
yeah.
far as I'm concerned, that dude's cracked the code. Now, don't get me wrong, I like my tacky too.
Yeah, he was definitely an innovator of it for sure.
I like my tacky, but if I can't find mine or I forget to bring my own, I'm like, who has Elite? It's the only other one I
Yeah.
like to use.
Yeah.
Spider Tack, ironically, is way too sticky for me.
It's good, and I think if you know how to use it, you can really screw yourself up with it. But it is a great product for sure.
Yeah.
No plug with them, obviously.
No.
It is what it is. It's good stuff. And even that stuff has come, like you said, for years. Matter of fact, little known fact, Mr. John Davis used to make our tacky.
John and I
We
had
were talking
several
about that.
conversations about this, actually.
I remember many things exploding in microwaves.
Yeah.
He literally made it in a shed at your old house.
Yeah.
Yes.
On a hot plate.
And I could have. I'm like, dude, your neighbors think you're cooking meth. What? For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, at first I was cutting it because I would order the
You cut
rosin
it-
flakes.
You cut it with meth?
No.
Oh.
That's what I was
That's what gave it
using
that zip.
Oh, I'm sorry. We are in Polk County,
just to
so
let that little
Hey.
sprinkle.
buddy.
You
No,
were
I would cut
cutting
it
with
with turpentine,
right?
which-
And for those who don't know, turpentine is actually the byproduct of making rock rosin from pine.
Right.
So the idea is that you're taking the liquid and making it not liquid by taking the liquid out, which is the turpentine.
Well,
Right.
but turpentine is really caustic to
Very
skin.
caustic, which I found out.
Listen, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Let's cut that out. Don't worry about that.
I told him not to read. There's no MSDS
Well,
sheet.
I don't know how to read.
Well, what was funny when he was messing with it, like when it was cool, it would be hard as a rock. So we would have to heat it
yeah.
to use it.
Right,
so you
right.
buy a
30
shitty
seconds.
microwave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just depending on the consistency you desire.
Right.
And we literally used a microwave at our gym that they cooked fish and shit in. And we were cooking, we were heating it up to do stone. So
It was covered.
the
It
shit was,
course.
It was
but-
covered.
What more do
Yeah.
you want, really?
covered.
Somewhat.
He's making it sound like it's a big deal. I'm
Yeah, I
with you.
know.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's funny as hell.
Added
looking
flavor
back
to
at
the
it.
fish.
Yeah.
How many years ago was that? Fuck, 15 years
At
ago?
least.
I mean, it is
least.
antibacterial, so I mean, you
Yes.
got that going for you.
Yes, and if you have open
It's
wounds,
sanitary.
it cleans it.
Yeah,
Seals, it's a
100%.
sealant.
Well, then I started using denatured alcohol.
Right.
Because I started reading a little bit more like the
Right.
MSDS sheet.
And that's
seeing-
basically the opposite of pine rosin.
Right,
Yeah.
so-
So
and-
that'll melt it for sure.
So, to be honest with you, I never knew this, that you were putting caustic shit all over us until now.
You really had to bring that up?
So now that I know, I mean,
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
Thanks, John.
So there's going to be a commercial.
right.
If
Did
you
you use
use
John
John's
Davis?
tacky, you might be
It's a class
entitled to a
action.
settlement.
It's a class action lawsuit.
There's 6 people.
There's
There's
6
it
others.
was him.
We got $4 coming a piece on this, son.
At least.
Yeah, at least.
We've seen what's in my bank account.
He just
right
filed
now.
for bankruptcy to
Yeah,
get away
really.
from it.
We're like,
Yeah,
that guy
ooh.
that had his arms amputated, it all makes sense now.
Yeah.
It all
Yes.
makes sense. He
I
used
mean,
to
that
use a lot
happened
of
at
good
tree
tacky.
trimming accident, but yeah, it
Don't
totally
worry
makes
about
sense.
it. Don't worry
Right.
about it. It's definitely a byproduct of that product.
Yeah.
I mean,
those
just-
good times. Good
There's a
times.
correlation for
Well,
sure.
like we talked about, the tacky was so expensive back then. It was like
Yeah.
$50 for a tiny little ramekin.
Yeah.
So we would use the stuff I made for
Right.
training,
Right.
and save the good tacky
Save the good
for,
stuff for
events
yeah.
and stuff. So
And that's kind of how I market the wet tacky, where I'm like, I don't charge a whole ton for it, and I understand that. Somebody left a review one time, and they said that if regular tacky's a 10 on top in terms of stickiness, and the wet and nothing is a 1. This is about a 6. And I was like,
Okay.
yeah, that's basically what I'm shooting for. Like, I wasn't trying to replace real tacky. Originally, I just wanted something to stick my stone sleeves in my
So
arms.
did you start out making tacky just because you didn't like what was out there, or did you start out making stones for what got you into
Every business that you will ever see from me and every product that I make
Mm-hmm.
is me wanting something to exist in the market that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came to stones, I saw Elliot Hulse lifting stones on YouTube in like 2013, and I was just
What's
like,
up? Yo Elliot.
Yeah.
Yo, Elliot,
and
yeah.
I was just like, that is the manliest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
How the fuck do I do that? And I started looking around, and at the time, nobody makes stones. So I figured out how to make stones, and I made one of those plaster molds with
Did
the
you ever-
Bosu ball and everything.
Yeah.
Did you ever use like Slater stones? Because that's the way we
Oh,
used
yeah.
to make them. We used
Yeah.
the Slater stone molds.
So
That's what we used.
that first one I made was the biggest piece of shit you've ever seen. I still have it to this day. It's 172 pounds. You can see the different layers of concrete in it. I
Right.
still have it. I refuse to get rid. I've moved 3 times, and I've never gotten rid of that
Yeah.
one stone.
Cool.
And then eventually, I was so embarrassed by that one just for myself. I was like, I'm going to be the best at this someday.
Right.
So then started investing in the Slater mold, bought one, sold a couple stones out of it. And I mean, you just keep rolling it. And now all of a sudden, 10 years to be an overnight success, right? So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it was about 6 or 7 years into making stones. John Fulmer happened to know Lynn Morehouse, who runs OSG.
Mm-hmm.
And John and I go way back. We've always had a really good, not only business relationship,
Good
but personal
people, yeah.
relationship. Yeah, I love John. Hi, Sammy.
Yeah.
And
Arf.
he told Lynn about stones, and it was in Daytona that year.
Yep.
And
that was
rest-
the first year it was in Daytona?
I think that was the second year it was in Daytona. Because it was there for, 3 years, right?
2 or 3 years.
I think it was 3 because it was there for one more year.
Because the last one was the hurricane year.
Right. Yeah.
So my stones were in Daytona for those 2 years, and then obviously West Virginia, and then just most recently Wisconsin.
Cool.
But yeah, so I mean, I think that was year 7 or no, I must have been a little later than that. I'd probably say almost 8 or 9 years into making stones. Just happened to, and that's a big lesson I've learned. It's not who you know, it's how you know them.
Right.
Like, you can know a ton of people, but if you don't know them in a way that's, I don't want to say beneficial, don't expect any benefits. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because, like, if John didn't trust me to make stones, he would have never recommended me to Lynn.
Right.
And then I wouldn't have gotten into worlds.
Networking.
Right.
And as
Yeah.
far
Right.
as I'm concerned, as long as Steve Slater is alive, that's probably as high as my stones will ever go, and I'm okay with that.
Would you
because-
say Slater's the best? I mean, I
Oh
think
yeah, absolutely.
he's like the grandfather of.
Steve Steve Slater is, the way I've described him is, if you are a stonemaker and you think you've done something cool and you go up to Steve and you show it to him, people are like, oh, that's cool, and then you find out he did the same thing 10 years ago except
Right.
better.
Right.
So like, nothing you've done is ever something he hasn't already tried and probably done better than you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, high level stuff, but been doing it forever. So
Even experimental stuff. I remember I showed him something one time where I had basically stripped off the top layer of the stone to expose the aggregate, and he was like, and it was odd because I've talked to Steve a lot. I have his number. He's a great guy, and we're face to face talking, and he was just like, he pulled out his phone and was kind of being rude. And I was like, that's not Steve. He doesn't do that. You know what I mean? He's normally like, when he is right here with you the
Pays
whole
attention,
time.
yeah.
Right.
Well, he's from the Midwest, so he's like, everything is about you right now. I don't want to be rude.
is he from Ohio?
I believe he is
Yeah.
from Ohio. I haven't heard him drop an ope or a watch out for deer yet, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure. And he's on his phone, and I was like, that's odd. He doesn't normally do that. And then he shows me a picture of a stone with exposed aggregate that he did like 10 years before that. And he was like,
Right.
oh yeah, and I did this thing where we put fiberglass in it. And then we took a torch and melted it, so we basically made it so it had like knurling on the stone. And I was
Oh, wow.
like,
Wow.
cool, why do I fucking bother doing anything?
Right.
Like, I should just ask you because you've probably done it 10 years ago and better. And he has. So, yeah, in terms of, I would say I'm in the top 5 at any given moment of stone makers on the planet. Standard Submit out in Australia, which I've met that guy, Mason, really nice guy too. He does amazing work as well. Steve's the GOAT. There's a guy up in Wisconsin, Kevin Prothero, who is just an amateur stone maker, but the level of detail and work that he puts into these stones, he just made that world record stone for the U90 guys.
Sure.
Kevin is easily top 5 in the world, and he's just too humble to admit it. And there's probably a couple other guys sprinkled in there. I know David Harrison out in California, he does really good work too.
So you did OSG. Did you ever do Clash as well?
I did do Clash.
You did
actually.
Clash
Yeah,
when it was.
so
Was that South Carolina, North Carolina?
Yeah, Hilton Head, wherever
Hilton
that
Head.
is. I don't remember if that's North or South Carolina, but yeah, I did the stones for that. I also made a world record stone for Hannah Lindsay to attempt.
And that was on the Clash. That's when it was on ESPN as well.
Yeah, like ESPN 8 or
the
9
Ocho.
or something. Yeah, or maybe even 3. I don't know. I don't know how high up in the ESPN it was, but
Obscure sports.
that was the year they had they attempted a big number of world records. That's actually where I met CJ Pierce and a few other people I met there. Uncle Nick, which him and I have been pretty close for years anyway. Nikolai Myers.
Sure.
And
Very good U90 guy.
oh yeah. I actually ran into him at that day. I didn't even know he was there, but I was smoking cigarettes with his father out in the parking lot, and I didn't know it was his father. And Nick walks up and he just goes, "Oh, I see you met my dad." And I was like, "Oh, it's just some old trucker dude I grabbed cigarettes off."
That's
I
funny.
didn't know, you know
He
what I
used to
mean?
be with what's his name in that camp out there, 231.
Brian Alsrew.
Alsrew. Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I've actually helped Brian Alsrew make a stone before.
Yeah.
I was watching one of his videos, and he had attempted to make like a 4 something, like 3 or 4 times, and finally I just couldn't take it anymore. And I just sent him a DM, and I was like, "Look, man, I hate being the guy who gives like unsolicited advice. I don't want to be that dude. Believe me, I don't want to be that dude. But listen, here's all the math on how to do it. This is how much lead you actually need.
Yeah, to get it balanced and everything.
And like you are undershooting your numbers by like 25 pounds, and here's the proof with the math to show you why it needs to work this way." And I was like, "If you just want to ignore me, I'm a dick, whatever. That's fine." I'm like, "But
he's a nice guy.
And he came back and he was like, "Dude, oh my God, thank you so much. I had no idea." Blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah,
super
blah.
nice guy, knowledgeable.
Super nice
very,
guy.
Yeah, and was a hell of a competitor. I remember the first year that I saw him at Nationals.
Yeah.
He's walking around. He was a lean dude, big guy, and I thought for sure he was like a heavyweight guy.
Yeah.
And they was like, "No, he's a 231." I was like, "What?" Like, he was a big looking 231.
There's
man.
dudes like that.
Yeah, he was a freak looking guy.
I thought when I saw CJ Pierce, I thought he was a 231er, and then I found out he was U90. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It reminds me of what's his name? He's another 200-pound guy, one of the tallest ones out there. He was like 6 foot, and I was like, why are you in the 90s?
Yeah, it's really weird when you get up to the higher levels of stuff, and all the guys are laying in. You really can't tell who. 175ers included.
Oh yeah.
Some of these guys are walking around. You're like, well, he's got to be a 200. Like, no, he's
Right.
a 175er. Same with us. As a 200 guy, a lot of these guys look like they're 230, and they're like,
Oh, yeah.
no, that guy's a 200. You can't tell who anybody is. Like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
such a.
Well, and I mean, you are notorious for your like nasty weight cuts too. I mean,
Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
you would walk around at like 230 and cut down to 200.
225,
wouldn't you?
226,
dude.
yeah. I do a lot of, and we've dove into that a lot, like kind of dangerous cuts, which is pretty common. You know what I
Par
mean?
for the course, and that's kind of what I try to tell people too, because I've heard some people like, "Oh, they should probably come up with something to this, that, and the other." And I'm like, "Listen, any rule you make for anything, an athlete is going to figure out how to get around
Right.
it one way or another." So it's best that you just kind of try to keep the door a little open for their idiocy and just go from there.
Well, and it's a choice you make, and everybody, I hate to say it, but most people play the game.
Yeah,
Especially in the
100%.
weight classes.
100%.
Unless you're just a heavyweight guy, which that would be great, just to eat your way in.
Love
Because
it.
you're adding so much stress to your,
Oh,
your
yeah,
whole,
yeah.
the whole production of it, man, it's so stressful to make weight, and then you got to put the weight back on, and then
That refeed.
It takes a lot of fun out of it for sure.
Like refeeding is one of the worst parts. That's like weigh-ins is event 1, refeeding is event 2.
for sure.
And then it's just like, guys, do you understand how hard it is to shove down like 8 to 10,000 clean calories in one day and a gallon of water?
Well,
like,
it's simple. If if I lost 22 pounds in a cut overnight, I got to put 22 pounds back on.
And that's what I always try to do. I try to wake up the next morning at where I started my
and
cut at.
it's hard.
It's
you know what I
tough.
mean? And the older you get, it's like I said, I've said this before. Stan Efferding, he has this quote of saying, he goes, "It's not that I can't do it anymore; it's I just don't want to do it anymore." And I'm kind of getting to that point to where
you earn your stripes, after a while.
And when you look back, like,
rest now, warrior.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well,
exactly.
when I look back at it, like, I wish I'd never really got into the weight cutting? I probably do. Would I have been as competitive? I don't know. You know what I mean? We'll never know that.
It's tough to, well, who knows? I mean, not for nothing, you might not have even survived. I mean, because
Sure.
at some point you would have had to try to put on some extra weight because
And I'm not cut out for that.
I don't necessarily believe mass moves mass as a hard and fast rule
Mm-hmm.
because everybody says that till I sit down for an arm over arm and then whoop everybody's ass. But you do need to have some weight if you're going to try to keep up with those big boys. And we're not huge guys. I mean, I'm 5'8.5" on a great day.
Yeah, I'm not even that.
You know what I mean? And it's
the
just
sport
like,
has evolved so much,
Right.
So now you got guys on 175s even that are doing weights that World's Strongest Man was doing 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
15 years ago.
It's
you know what I
insane.
mean? It is evolved. Like this past OSG, I was looking at the open numbers and I was like, oh my God.
Oh, dude,
like,
you take me today, and I'm at best a mediocre athlete. You take me today and go like 7 years back, I
Yeah.
probably could have gotten top 5 at OSG.
yeah, it's evolved tremendously.
In
Like-
such a short amount of time. But that's a beautiful thing too. That's kind of what you want to see, because that not only does that mean that the envelope is getting pushed in the right direction, in my opinion, but also it shows that there's a growing pool of talent to pull to get from.
Right.
Because that wouldn't happen if we just had the same 8 or 12 people all the time. It's like, no, people are coming from other sports or even just from no sport,
Crossover athletes and
getting involved and discovering that they actually have kind of a talent or a penchant for it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Panache.
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely evolved. And everything, even getting back to the stones, even the stones have evolved tremendously. Like from when we first started,
Oh yeah.
Wheat still has the Slater molds. He still has the original ones. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and those things last forever, but are they the same as what we were making back then? Absolutely not.
No,
I mean,
there's certain standards, and that was my thing with stones, where when I first started, I said, you know what, every couple of years, I want to make a new standard for myself for what is acceptable as a stone. And I did a series on my Instagram where I showed off like a bunch of these stones that I would never sell.
right.
And go over why I would never give it away, never sell it, because it shows like this is what was wrong, this is what I did wrong, this was the new standard this year, that kind of thing. And I mean, over the course of, oh my God, it's been like 31. I started doing them when I was 18. So yeah, it's been a lot of years.
So from your first stone, how long did it take to where you got really comfortable with your craft?
To say I'm one of the best?
No. To get comfortable with your craft where you knew when the stone came out it was going to be top notch. You know what I mean?
Probably about 3 years ago, honestly. So I
Okay.
mean, we're talking. It took almost 10 years before I was
To
finally
really
like,
perfect your craft.
before I was like, I know I've done everything right for prep. I know when I pop this stone out, there's going to be minimal finishing work to do.
Right.
It's just it in theory it could be ready to go right out of the mold. But there's always, like I said, standards got raised. Like for a while, sealing was not a necessity to me, and then I decided, no, this needs to be a necessity now. For a while, say having the logos or the numbers painted on was fine, and then I changed the standard to no, it needs to be embedded in the concrete,
Right.
so it's always there no matter what. You know what I mean? And so the standards just changed. Flat spots were okay for me for about 3 months, and then I was like, no, that's stupid. Stones are supposed to be spheres. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? So the standard just kept evolving, and then I think when I got to this thing about you and I, so 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, I have nothing else I can add to make this any better than what it is.
So when you got asked to do like high level shows on OSG, had to been nervous.
Oh, wow.
I mean, yeah. I mean, so how many stones? And they demand a lot of stones. So how many stones did you get?
It's a matching set of 12, so it's 24 total stones, and
Because they run 2 lanes,
2 lanes exactly.
head-to-head lanes.
Head-to-head lanes.
Right.
So, and it's not even so much of like, 2 pairs of this. And here was the thing. The rule of thumb was you could be within 5 to even 7% of, say, the 150, which is the lightest stones, right? So it could weigh 160 or it could even weigh less, 140. But whatever one weighed, the other one had to weigh.
Exactly.
Within 1%.
Wow.
So if you have a 150, the other one better be 150. If it's 153, 153.2. The other one better be 153.2.
So you had to match these things before you ship them out, and
Yeah, so there was a fun story there, actually. And this is one job that I learned, start with the bigger stones and work your way down. I'd started with the smaller stones, and I ended up 3 days before the show pouring one of the other 400s because I could not get the weight right. Because I already poured one, and it came out at like 403.
how long does that take to cure? Like a stone that big?
Well, so concrete in general, you're supposed to let it cure for 28 days, but it'll
Right.
set within a day or two, which means you can pop it out of the mold within a day or two. And I had no choice, so that's what I did.
Do you use like accelerants and
I
stuff
did
like
use
that?
some accelerants, and
Yeah.
not only on that one, but I did the other thing where I covered it in plastic and put
Water.
a heat lamp on it.
I know they do it with water too,
Right.
like
So I-
sprinklers and shit.
I made it a superhuman environment, which will make the total strength of the concrete lower. Like it's estimated to get to, like, say 5,000. That stone probably would only ever get to about 3,500, but it got there in a day.
Right.
And I'm like, that should be fine. It's low drop. I did the math. I was like, it should be fine no matter what. I don't have a choice. I got
but-
2 days to get this thing done. You know.
But you've had failures at comps.
I have had one failure at a show.
What was that?
That was the what was that? It was World Strength Games, I think, because Ragnarok was that promoter's first show in
Sure.
Florida, right? So then the World Strength Games, I'd made a 400-pound stone, and I have made over 400 stones, period. And probably in shows, I've probably had somewhere around 80 to 90 stones in a show, and that is the only one that has ever had a failure to the point where it was just unusable.
Catastrophic failure.
Yeah, like a big chunk popped out, and I know exactly what I did wrong after it happened. It doesn't help in the moment.
What
but-
was it?
So I had been experimenting with trying to reduce the weight of stones, and it won't get too into detail, but long story short, I did the wrong thing. I used the wrong product to try to
Fucked up.
lighten it, and it just
But
burst
you know,
on me.
and shit happens. I mean, I've been
Right.
at comps where implements fail, and of course, when that happens, that bad news is always going to travel way faster than. Because if nothing happened, nobody's going to say anything.
Oh,
But
it
if
got-
something happened, then Will sucks.
It
and
was
his-
even worse. It was even worse. So I have this weird, like, tumultuous relationship with my immediate family, especially with my father. And I hadn't talked to him in probably like 7 years.
Oh, wow.
No, he has my number. He can call me anytime he wants. You know what I mean? So I got a text from my cousin, and she tells me he's in the hospital. And at the time, this was 3 years ago. So I'm like, 29-year-old. I don't give a fuck. I won't give a shit if he's sick. I don't
Right.
fucking care. She told me that. I shut down.
Yeah.
And the show's still going on. I've still got about 4 more hours in this building. And I'm not talking to anybody. And people know me. I never shut the fuck up. So I'm like just shut down. And about 20 minutes later, I hear that happens with the stone. And I'm just like, I have no energy
Right.
to give.
You're spent.
I have nothing.
Yeah.
I am emotionally just destroyed.
Well, it is
and,
what it is at
and
that point. So, I
well,
mean-
I remember Mike De La Pava was at the show. And everybody knows Mike that knows Mike. He very excitedly told me it happened. And I basically just had no reaction. I was like, okay. Yeah, I mean, and even if I hadn't been like emotionally shot, I probably still would have been like, okay, like the fuck am I supposed to do? But oh yeah, I've got another 400-pound stone right over here. bro.
Right.
Like
We
yeah.
roll it right out.
Yeah.
So what did they do in that situation? Like,
They just ran with it. They only had 2 competitors that were using that stone anyway at that particular show, as far as I understand. And so they just ran it again with that stone for the next guy.
really?
That's what I think happened. I mean, honestly, the whole thing was kind of a blur
Right.
after I got the news about my father. So
Well, and I remember hearing that it was like a stone failure or whatever, but I'm sure it's happened in every, facet of strongman build. I mean, I've seen yokes fail, logs fail.
I've seen the weight pin of a yoke snap off, which I was
Oh,
like, I didn't even
sure.
know that could happen.
We
Like,
had
Oh,
that
yeah.
happen at Orlando's.
Florida's, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was
Orlando,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was there.
You were there.
I'm
I-
usually there.
Thankfully, in that one,
won't say who did it, but
thankfully in that one, they had my yoke as a backup in the truck, so we didn't miss a beat. Thank God. 'Cause I was competing in that.
I remember the competitor that was using it.
that's what I'm saying. I know who did it, but I'm not going to drop blame.
I'm not going to blame him. I blame the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Like, dude, a weight
Yeah.
pin on a yoke, it's like the least stress point out of the whole thing. What are you
Could be.
talking about? You would think.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you though, that kind of feeds into like comps these days and being prepared.
Yes, Black Swans.
That's what I like to call them.
Yeah, because that was Alan's show, Florida Strongest, and I don't even remember why we had the extra yoke if we were going to run another lane or whatever they were going to do.
I would I would say that was probably the case because
whatever it was,
we had limited
like,
space, so we weren't able to.
I was
going to
say, yeah.
But what a godsend, because nothing didn't miss a beat.
Right.
Like, you know, snatched it back out, you know, snatched that one out and had it on the floor within 20 minutes, and we're going, you know. So
Yeah, they had given us somewhat of a small space to operate, and we just weren't able to do. We just didn't have the room for 3 yoke.
Yeah, definitely on expos and stuff like that. Like I've done some nationals that had no shutdown for the yoke, and the yoke was flying like into weights piled up, and because it's slick floor usually, you know what I mean?
Very
it's like,
slick, it would slide.
Shit gets real.
And I'll tell you, as somebody who ran a show in a convention center, like, so I started out in the sport just as a volunteer, and that's actually how I met John.
Yeah, many years ago.
Many years ago. And
I regret that.
You remember?
Day.
Yeah.
Hey, it's your fault. You remembered my name the next year. You were like, "Oh, hey, Will," and I was like,
Will.
"You remembered my name."
Do you remember what comp that was? What was the
That was
first
Florida's
comp?
Strongest Man.
Really? So Allen's.
Yeah, first 3 years in the sport, all I did was volunteer at that show.
Was it at Mojo's or was it at?
The first one was at the gym.
At the gym.
And then I believe the second one was at Mojo's. And then I think the third one was also at the gym again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we shifted kind of back and forth on that for a little while.
Or something along those lines.
No, I remember
I
that.
know at least 2 of them were at the gym, and at least one of them was not. But I was not competing. And my first show that I competed in was actually Miami's. I want to say it was like his second or third year. I have the shirt at home. So
I always try to remember the people that help because that's
I think it's a good thing. I think it's
a complete blessing that we
think
have people to
It's a
help.
big part of it for sure.
Well, and you and I have a lot of agreement in believing in sort of gatekeeping to an extent. Because I'm like, I don't see how the hell you could run a show if you've never even volunteered once at a show. Because volunteering for those 3 years,
you learn a lot for sure.
just as a volunteer, and then especially under the tutelage of somebody like John, who knows what the fuck he's doing beyond
Thank you.
a shadow of a doubt.
John Davis, I'm available.
Yeah, hell yeah. Like, hell yeah.
300 an hour.
Like, honestly, you know, like, you clearly know what you're doing. And I learned that by going to shows where there were guys that did not know what they were doing.
Sure.
Right.
Well,
You
it
know
makes you appreciate it more. But what's weird about that is you have a lot of shows that go on now that, you know, I've been to them and they're total shit shows, and the people don't know any different.
Right.
And then they're posting like what a great show it was. And I'm like, were you at the same comp?
And
I was at, like,
there's little things you get from a lot of experience too. Like, I've been in the sport for about 12 years, essentially my entire adult life. Like, turned 18 and then started participating in one way or another here. And I'll give you an example. We had a show over the weekend, Freak Strong, and we had a bag toss. And so the first thing I did when we started doing warm-ups was I said, hey, I grabbed the volunteer who was helping me mostly throughout the day, Tyler Hicks, good guy. And I said, okay, we need to find standard plates, you know, just the 1-inch hole plates. I said, we need
God, who
8
has
of them.
those anymore? Jesus.
Yeah, really.
I said, we need 8 of them. And then he goes, why? And I said, because we need to put them over the weight pins of the yokes that they're using for the uprights. And he was like, I don't really understand. John, excuse me.
I do that every single podcast.
Please stop doing that. Thank
Excuse
you.
me, you know?
Will's talking.
Jeez, I lost my train of thought. No, I didn't. I know what I'm talking about. So we run inside. We end up finding some, and we put him there. And he's like, well, I'm still not 100% sure why we need that there. But okay, the first bag toss that goes over,
Pow.
hits the plate and slides off. And he just looks at me and goes, oh. And I was like, so instead of having to wonder, what do we do when one of these bags pop? All we have to worry about is resetting these plates every time. And I'm like, that's that kind of shit that only comes from experience. Now, I actually picked that up from Mike Del Papa, speaking of.
Well, it's either guys that have learned it in training
Or the hard way.
from failure. Yeah.
Right. Or the
It's like,
hard way.
hey, we just blew a $150 sandbag.
Right. And the show's now fucked.
Yeah, because not a lot of people are going to have.
For that weight
have
class,
extra
you got to
money.
figure out what to do. For
Well,
that.
and for that show, we were really fucked because all the men were doing the same exact weights. They were just changing the height for certain, what do you call
Divisions.
it? Divisions. Thank you. Yes. So it's like, it's one of those things. Now, can I guarantee a bag would have popped? Hell no. But was it worth us taking that 3 minutes to find those?
Well, it's a gamble. Yeah, I mean,
100%. I would much rather, because those bags hit those uprights 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
A lot of velocity when they're getting thrown 17, 18 feet in the air, whatever.
Well, that's one thing he does well for meets when he's judging or whatever. He's got a checklist of things we need. And from that experience, learning of failures and stuff, you have backups.
You have to. Yeah.
That you can immediately
Right.
enable in the event that, you know, something fails or
Well,
whatever.
and one of the things I've started implementing, both at my shows, we did it at Manatee, which was 2 weeks ago, and then last weekend at Freak Strong, is I have the clickers that
rep
runners
counters.
use,
Right.
You know, or rep counter,
counters,
whatever you
yeah.
want to call it. You know,
We
I have
needed
those.
we needed that in Tallahassee, by the way. Remember when I had to? So I'm judging at Fane's comp, and I'm judging, and I'm thinking, and it's an up and down call on a deadlift.
Oh my God.
I'm like, there's no way I can up and down and count these reps. There's no, and I'm
One
like,
hand,
Will,
yeah.
and Will's, you're loading basically.
Pretty much.
And I'm like, Will, can you please count these? Because I was like, there's no, and even that got very confusing.
I still screwed it up every once in a while.
And usually,
I know I did.
And usually I have a clicker, but I didn't bring it.
Yeah.
And totally forgot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it is little shit like that that makes, I mean, that could be the difference between you screwing up the scoring. You know what I mean? It's a big deal.
It's one of those. There's no such thing as small things because every little thing leads into a big thing.
Yeah.
Especially on that when, you know, if you got a rep separating somebody, I would, you know, and that's why and this is kind of a weird subject too, because I think everybody should video them, you know, them
Absolutely.
competing.
Absolutely.
But don't be an asshole about it. Like, if you get called, hey,
Right.
they wrote that down 7 reps,
Right.
you approach people correctly
Right.
and respectfully and say, hey, would you mind looking at this video?
And as a judge, and anytime I'm allowed to talk during rules meeting, I'm like, hey, if you have video evidence that rep counts are wrong, talk to me. I was like, don't talk to me too much unless you have definitive proof that the timing on an event was wrong, because that's a little too subjective sometimes.
Very subjective.
Well, between that, and it can get shaky too because of no reps. Like if I'm a judge and I don't give you a no rep call, and somebody's trying to let that slide through on a video, the judge really needs to look at what's going on too, because you can be like, oh, okay, well you did. Well, maybe I called a no rep. You know what I mean?
And I always explain to the
happens.
athletes, and I did that. I only had to take away 2 reps from athletes last weekend when I was judging, and I explained to them before the event, I want to give you a rep. Mm-hmm. Please make it at least kind of look like I can give you a rep.
Right.
You know, make it look like I don't want to no rep you.
Right.
I want everybody to get a rep. You know what I mean? But if you jump my down call, what am I supposed to do,
rules
bro?
are the rules, man.
You know what I mean? And
we have to be fair for the other competitors that are walking it out and waiting for your down call.
And we've all probably fallen victim to bad judges. I know I have, and I never really say anything. You know what I mean? Because I'm not, and I don't let my athletes do that either. I've had athletes get pissed, and I'm like, hey, you can talk to me about it. Don't show your ass out there, because it's a good way to get blackballed the next time. Like, oh, I remember this dude. I remember this smart ass.
Oh, yeah.
And we've seen people come unglued on the field, and I'm like, buddy, the next time that guy judges you, trust me, this is human nature.
Oh yeah. I was making jokes with some of the athletes, like they would like trip and almost hit me or whatever, and be like, "Oh, that's a real great start for your judge, bro."
Yeah, really.
You sure you want to do that right now, man?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not serious because
of course not. But
I've judged people that I absolutely hate, and I've been as professional as somebody who doesn't get paid can be.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Well, you don't have to like them. You just have to be fair and do your job.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is like, you know,
I'm there to work.
Yeah.
As a competitor, at some point you have to realize, and I think this definitely gets lost after comps, to where 99% of the people, other than a promoter, are probably there for free.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, some judges are going to get compensated whatever at a higher level show, as they should. Mm-hmm. You know, paid for their time, whatever. But for sure, like if you're sitting there just going off on somebody, you have to realize, like, these people are here because they love the sport, and they're doing you a service basically.
Oh yeah.
By trying to give you a good comp, you know.
And hey, look, I just this weekend, I'm not that embarrassed.
Well, you should be.
There was a group of kids there that were supposed to be helping out at the show, and by event 2, I had realized these kids are about useful as tits on a boar.
Right.
And so at one point, I asked them. We were resetting, I believe, the log, and I had time to reset the log on my own before they had even gotten to where the plates were to bring us the plates we needed. So,
and that's an experience on
and I walked
part.
over to him. Well, and that was just it. I walked over to him and I was like, "How is that possible that I'm able to do this?" And I was kind of a dick about it. I didn't mean to be, but I was so angry because it was like, "You're here to work."
Well, and it's 100 degrees too, so you know.
And I know what the rest of my day looks like because I've done this before. You know what I mean? So I told the kid, I was like, "Listen, look, you're either here to work or you're not." I said, if you want to work because you said you'd be here and work, then work. If not, go home. I don't want you here. You're a liability.
And that was
slow things down.
They ended up going home, so I guess they made a choice.
Well, I know that was Woody's comp, and I know Woody's got some health issues. Shout out to Woody. You know, hopefully everything turns out good with Woody. He's a good guy.
Leroy ended up Leroy Herndon. I think that's how you say it.
And I think Yorks were there.
Which
helped tremendously.
Tanya and Bill showed up.
Very good people.
Obviously, Steve and myself were there. And we
Yorks are very good people as well.
The best,
very highly involved in a sport.
One of my favorite power couples.
Yeah, and she's an awesome competitor in her own right. So she's done a lot of high levels. And, getting back to it, it helps if you don't, like in Woody's case, it's out of his control. The guy's, he's got, stuff going on that he's got to take care of, and that's understandable. But it's a big deal to try to find people if you can. I'm sure he did. But, short notice, whatever. People have schedules, lives.
Oh, yeah.
But to have a backup plan or to have people that really know what they're doing when it comes to running comps, which now is far and few between now because, there's so many comps. We're going to get into that, obviously. We get into that with every guest we have, but shit.
Let me see my list.
Yeah. But, I think it's a big deal to go out of your way to try to recruit these people if you can. Even if you do got to pay them a little bit of money, if you put on a good comp, those people are more apt to come back next year and be like, you know what, I had a great time. We've talked about this as far as like, the quality of people you have running your show to make it efficient. And there, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of guys that are running very efficient comps.
Right.
But it's getting more and more where they're not because there's not enough people to go around that know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
And you can't run these comps by yourself. I don't care how much you know.
No.
Like even
you
me
need bodies.
Yes.
You need
For
bodies.
sure.
I have a list of 18 people with their emails on an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
The reality is, the absolute reality is, in order to run my show with one lane, I need 4 people. So I said, okay, we quadruple that number and then add 3 because I know what happens is if you get 10 guys that say they're going to be there, you only end up with 4. Exactly. So last year I had so many volunteers to the point where I actually was able to rotate shifts.
And that's the way you want it.
Absolutely. I'd rather have more.
You don't kill people, especially in we're in Florida. It's hot as hell, and you can kill your people by the third event.
And that's the thing I learned from, and I'll talk about that a little bit, having like the influence of other promoters that I respect and enjoyed watching their shows. One thing I actually picked up 2 really good things from Lynn Morehouse, who runs Official Strongman Games. One of my favorite ones was never allowing your volunteers to reset equipment by hand.
Sure.
I don't care if it's a 100-pound
Dollies
sandbag.
and
Put it on a dolly for 2 reasons, actually 3. First reason, to save your volunteers.
Right.
Because it's going to kill them after a while. Yeah, I know you're a big tough guy, but dude, you're doing
resetting a 300-pound sandbag every time.
Over and over and over and over and over. It's going to catch up to you, bro.
You can only take that so much, obviously. So.
2, how embarrassing would that be for an athlete that just failed a 100-pound sandbag and then someone like you or me or a big guy,
whoever,
just yeets it on his shoulder and runs it back.
Yeah.
You just made that competitor look like absolute dog shit.
I never thought about that. But that's
and
true.
the third reason, you broke the illusion. Strongman's supposed to be a show. If you just showed this implement is impossible to be lifted by this woman, and then this big dude just comes up and yeets it around, you just broke the illusion.
Yeah.
So that's why I refuse. Like, no, I don't care if it's just an 80-pound, a 25-pound dumbbell. No, put it on a dolly and move it with the dolly.
It back.
We have appearances to keep up, and we have respect to give to the athletes, and we don't want to burn you out as a volunteer.
And you want to entertain the crowd.
Right.
I mean, for real.
100%. It's supposed to be a show.
You want to entertain the
day.
crowd. That's.
And one other great thing I got from him, which was the 2-parter, because I mentioned it.
And one of the times I was up there refurbishing the stones, and I'd said, I think I might put on a show one of these days, Build Development Classic or something like that. And he was like, oh yeah, fucking classic, because there's been so many of them. And I was like, damn. He's right, though. You know what I mean? Like, that's stupid. Why would I call it a classic when there hasn't even been one of them?
Right.
Hint, hint. Anybody that thinks it's a show classic. Anyway, he won't listen. He's too much of a bitch. Wow.
You heard it here first.
I'll say it to his fucking face. I don't care. Very violent. Very violent. No, I'm not, actually, because he's not. Anyway, but then he dropped this nugget where he said, if you're going to do a show, have a reason. Right. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, so what's the point of me doing a show? And I said, is it just to have another good show in Florida? At the time, I was like, there's plenty of good shows in Florida. I would be a waste of time if I did say another traditional strongman show in Florida. Like, there's plenty of those that are actually good, things like Miami's, Florida's. Those are very traditional and good strongman shows. And then you've got Beast of the Bay or World's Strongest Manatee. Those are also very good traditional shows. Hell, at the time we had John's show, Summer Torture.
Yes.
Very good traditional strongman show. You know what I mean? And what I mean by traditional, like there's no kind of wild events going on.
They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're using good traditional strongman events.
Like you're going to see a press, you're going to see a deadlift, you're going to see a moving event, you're going to see a grip event, you're going to see stones or some sort of loading with sandbags or stones or games. Like
it's going to be that. Right. You're not going to see things like a Hercules hold there, probably, or some sort of
Atlas, or not Atlas,
hyper athletic event. Generally speaking, that's not to say like yoking a sandbag isn't athletic, but you know what I mean. Right. It's like you've got 5 implements you're running around with.
Well, they're safe too for a promoter. That's a safe bet.
Exactly.
Because a lot of times, even when shit sounds like it's going to be a good idea, even if it's been tested by like 2 people in your gym, it doesn't mean that it's going to work, because when you get, let's say, 60 competitors of all different levels, if there's a failure to come, you're probably going to find it. Or
absolutely,
some of these things, when they're trying to test them, it looks good on paper in the gym, and then it's not really tested by. That's another thing as far as promoters. If you're going to have these events, you need to test it at all levels. You need to have a novice guy come in, because the last thing you want in a strongman comp is boring as hell. It sucks for the competitor, and it sucks for people watching when everybody zeroes it. It's like there's nobody who wants to see this shit.
No.
So for promoters, testing is definitely, it's time consuming.
Right.
You got to have guys come out, maybe multiple weekends, like, hey, we're testing, and we've done that. I've done that for Alan.
Yeah.
I'm a 200-pound guy, and he's like, hey, I need you to come test this. And even if it's just me, like, we can get a good idea of how much more should a 231 be based on what I can do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. And if I can do it for 5 reps, that's probably going to be pretty fair for everybody. You know what I mean? Now, if I strain to get 1, you might have maybe 1 or 2 other people that can do that, and then the rest are going to zero. You really don't want that either.
Right. Well, and unfortunately, the way my show is set up, I can't exactly do it how I believe strongman should be done, which is the rule of thirds. I think a third of the field should zero the event. I think a third of the field should be able to finish it, but not super well. And then I think a third of the field should dominate it so hard that it's scary how good they did. I believe in that rule of thirds. And what you'll find is with events that people tend to say were like good, or shows, you'll see that's kind of across the board. There's usually these group of athletes that are usually in the top third at all given times. There's a guy who comes out of nowhere, or an athlete who comes out of nowhere, and it's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting them to do that well on that one event.
Yeah, you never know. I mean,
but that's usually the only one event that they broke the top 3 on. You know what I mean? Normally speaking, you'll find it's like, it's a pretty good representation. That is assuming all of the events were weighted, I'll say, appropriately. I personally don't have a problem seeing people zeroing shows. I think people should be zeroing shows. I think if everybody can get a rep.
No. Yeah, and I agree with that too. Yeah. But I'm saying if you have something that across the board everybody's zeroing.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it's not been tested at all.
Like I said, rule of thirds, man. I want to see a third of the athletes zero, a third finish, but not well, and a third.
The other end of the spectrum is when everybody pulls
25 reps.
It's like,
absolutely
not tested at all.
I think if you can break into the double digits on an event that's 60 seconds, I think you may have picked a weight that was a little too light.
Unless you just wanted it to be a cardio fest,
If everybody breaks into the double digits. If you have like 1 or 2 freaks that are pulling 10, 15, that's just going to happen sometimes. You can't help it. Hell, some people just kind of turn it on, right? But then I think if only 1 or 2 do it, you're fine. I think if everybody's breaking into the double digits, you may have wanted to readjust that weight to be a little bit heavier. But, back to the, why I wanted to put on the show was I tell this story. I was at a rules meeting one time, which, hey, not pro tip from your boy Will. At a rules meeting, shut the fuck up. Don't ask questions. Just do it.
You don't think competitors should ask questions?
No. Read the fucking rules, and if it's not in the rules, then just fucking do it.
Because
worst case, they'll either stop you right when you're trying to cheat because you're a cheating piece of shit, or 2, they'll name a new rule after you, which is awesome.
No, that's true. Now that's a double-edged sword, cheat, because.
But you have to be a man about it though, because you're playing a game. And if they call you out on it, you can't be a dick about it. You can be like, hey, you know what, man, you got me.
And we've seen that a bunch.
You got me.
I mean,
you try to be cute. You got to know if they catch you. You got me. All right. Be
cool
about it.
It's definitely like every year you go to nationals, and everybody knows this. There's going to be one dude or one woman asking a question about and it's annoying as shit.
Yes.
You're just like, bro, everybody's ready to go eat. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Do a little bit of homework.
And usually it's the dumbest fucking question. Like,
that happens a lot. Yeah.
Can we use wrist wraps on the press?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, you're going to see a little bit of all of that, especially at nationals, where a lot of people, it's their first time being at nationals, they're nervous and they ask a lot of dumb shit.
And I hate to say it, but I've heard some pretty dumb questions at Worlds.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember any right now, but and God bless Lynn, because like there's been occasions where you just hear this question and the whole audience kind of like stares
Like,
at the
holy
person,
shit,
like
yeah.
what is wrong with you? And he takes it on the chin and he goes, "That's not a bad question because I think what you mean is this." Like he's very good about that. He's very diplomatic, which I've always appreciated about
I've
him.
never
you
really
know?
wondered. I've never really understood why people wait until the day of, because if I have a question about something going in, I'm probably going to DM or email
Sure, yeah.
way ahead of time in my training to know this is what I can do, this is what I can't
That
do.
leads me into a little something that I got to get out, that I want a little pet peeve where maybe a bigger audience will say it. Okay, so
Sure.
if you're dealing with a business owner and you're trying to ask them a question about anything or a promoter who's running a show, don't fucking ask me if you can ask me a fucking question.
Just ask it.
Just ask it.
You can say, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" Or, I don't know, maybe start with a salutation of some sort. That'd be
Yeah.
nice. But honestly, I don't give a shit personally. If you just like, "Hey, what's this?" Perfect, beautiful. But if you just leave me with, "Hey, can I ask you a question?"
Yeah.
And then I got to
Just
start playing
back and
fucking
forth,
tag with
back
you.
and forth on
Right.
it.
One of these days, I will not respond if you do that shit to me.
Or just
Because-
say, hey, I got a question for you, and then say the
Say
question.
what
and
it
say
is.
the
Yeah.
question.
Hey,
Beautiful.
got a quick question for you on this comp.
Even if it's not.
I
a
just
quick
like to
question.
clarify,
Yeah,
yada,
exactly.
yada, yada.
Don't,
Right.
but
Yeah.
don't send your one message of, "Hey, can I ask you a question?"
Yeah.
I've started to respond with no.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah.
Now what, dumbass?
Now what are you going to do?
Yeah. Just put it
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah. Just ask me the damn question. I'm glad I got the opportunity to kind of like just ease into that.
Ease into it, yeah.
Yeah. Feel free to ask questions. I agree. I think during a rules meeting is there mostly, in my opinion, to clarify the rules.
Just the standards of the event.
On
right?
and usually it's if something has changed slightly, because that happens sometimes too. Like, hey, an event might have been 50 feet, we had to change it to 45 kind of deal, you know. So because of that, you know, instead of the whole yoke has to go over only half of it, kind of thing, stuff like that. I've seen that a lot, and I think that's perfectly acceptable to ask those kind of questions to clarify those kinds of issues. But man, some of the stupid fucking questions you get. I mean, can I splint jerk on the log?
Right.
And I'd be like, no. But my show stemmed from a stupid fucking question at a rules meeting one time. I don't remember what show it was. I don't remember how many years ago it was. But I believe there was like a 13 or a 16 or an 18-inch deadlift, some sort of non-standard height deadlift. And one of the competitors asked, and I was competing, one of the competitors asked, this is day of, by the way, when you measured the bar, was that measured from the bottom, the top, or the middle of the bar?
I've heard the same question.
And I turned around. I don't even remember what athlete it was. I don't remember if they're male, female, couldn't tell you. But I turned around, and before the promoter could even answer the question, I said, "Why the fuck do you care? You already lost." Because if that makes a goddamn difference on the day of to you,
That much.
you're not winning anyway, bro.
Yeah.
Just go home.
Well, I think that's part of the evolution too. Is
Definitely when I got into it, it just was what it was. I mean, it makes me sound older, you know what I mean, in the stand, which I've been in it for a while. But you didn't really see a lot of that back in the day because there wasn't a lot of choices.
But they couldn't answer the question anyway.
Well, and
They
now,
just called it 18 inches because that's
Yeah.
what it was.
well, now everything is. It's so people want to know specifically what bar are you using.
What brand of ass?
Is it? Yeah, is it a Bartos? Is it a Cerberus? Is it an Iron Mine? Is it this? And I'm like,
Just
Everybody's using the same implement.
yeah.
shit.
But
So
people are like trying to like really micromanage.
And there's very few
Dial in.
competitors that I know that will actually affect their performance. I think I've met two where it's like, you know what, that guy is that insane. He actually does need to know what
Yeah.
it is, and it will change.
Well,
the
and
outcome
you know, maybe if
for
you're going for like a world record or something, then you might want to know exactly what you're using. But you know, if you've got a piece of shit yoke and that's what you train with, and you get on a great yoke at the comp, you're going to do a lot better on that.
from a
So
full
just-
nose.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
I've never hit comp weight on the yoke we have at our gym.
Yeah.
It is a homemade yoke that is very thin and it's very,
Mhm.
very unstable.
I mean, most of the stuff we had to begin with was all homemade stuff.
Homemade stuff.
Yeah,
Most of what we've done with that yoke at our gym was 575. But
Yeah.
I've hit 650 in a show. You know what I mean?
We talked about this last podcast. The first the first log we had, Weech built,
Yeah.
and it was what 203,
yeah, 202. I
and
remember
it
very
was a
specific.
13 inch diameter. So you're holding it way out here.
It was a beast. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
remember that stone he made, like a 400-pound stone.
Oh yeah.
I know
Oh,
what
yeah.
you're talking about because I talked with Scott about that.
Well, He had.
So that's what we had to learn on.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, 222 is the lightest we ever had, and that's what we learned on.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a Slater mold.
Right.
Yeah, the best that we could do at the time, which, you know, looking back at it, you know, he still has those stones.
Yeah.
We still have those stones.
But
I think that's a testament to something.
it was one of those things where you didn't
They're like
question.
20 years old.
why it weighs so much. You just like, okay, well, this is what I got.
This is what it is, and that's where my reason for my show came from. It was from that stupid fucking question at a rules meeting. Are you serious right now? First of all, it's today. What adjustments are you planning on making?
It's not going to matter.
You know what I mean?
It's not going to matter.
And to my credit, he did fucking lose that time.
Yeah.
Are they coming for you?
Every time.
Yeah.
And I think I know what it is. I think I know what it is.
It's try.
Yeah. I've got to go out there and say, can we please get the fuck out of here?
Well, didn't we do a podcast during the air show?
The flying.
Yeah, flying. Something fun.
Jets and shit flying over us. It's so annoying. But
that's where I came up with the idea for my show, where I said, all right, well, I definitely want to name it a circus thing, because that's what Strongman started. And I want to kind of go back to the circus. And I said, you know what if you had a show where the entire show was a lottery? But I'm not insane. We'll have options for each discipline, right? And I'll tell you the weights of all of those, because, again, I'm not insane. I do want to put on a good show, which means they need to be able to at least have an idea of what to train for, right?
There's no doubt, though, let me interject here, that screws you up as far as who's going to sign up for it. People now are so afraid to gamble. They want to know, getting back to the equipment, what exactly is it? What do I train? So we've kind of lost a little bit of the pureness of strongman.
Like trying to get it back.
Because back in the day, the early 70s, or, the 70s shows in 80s, they had no idea until the day of.
They would show up and they're like, so we're doing this today.
Like that, and that lets you know what a monster like Kazmaier and Jean-Paul Sigmund, all these guys really were. And you talk about absolute maniacs, Steve.
And some of the events were way different, like bending rebar around your neck.
And, we don't do that.
And carrying a car, a harness.
Wearing a suspender.
Yeah.
Suspender.
So, I mean.
Well, and that's,
I was doing good to pull the John.
Yeah, well, I do it every podcast.
Push your mic my way a little bit.
Pick up better. Okay.
So, further.
That Ramirez is coming out, right?
I want all these ones.
Stretch mine over your.
Like I'm at a pulpit or something, like
hot
news.
mic.
Yeah. Okay, so do you think in your comp, I was at your comp, and
very appreciative to have you there, by the way.
what, like, how did you feel about the turnout of that? Like,
it was about what I expected for year one, and I liked that it was indoors in an expo, sure, to some extent, but it also added a lot of other stressors. And not for nothing, but as a promoter and the kind of man that I am, it ate into my profit margin, which, hey, first show, they say you do good if you just break even.
Sure.
Right.
Which I actually ended up making like $2 off of that whole show when
it
was all said and done.
Yeah, I've been there and done that.
And so they were like, you did great. And I was like, cool. But part of what ate into my profits was because we were at that convention center, I was paying for the parking of all my volunteers. Now, I was able to get wristbands for the entry for my, obviously, athletes and volunteers. But then, unfortunately, I just did not have the budget to pay for everybody's parking.
Right.
I did not have the budget to pay for the tickets for family members of people that wanted to come by, too. Now, my argument was, hey, you're getting free entry into an expo, though, and my show is going to be done by 3, which means you'll still have 5 hours to walk around this place.
Right.
And all of the competitors did. We had awards done by 3. And yeah, I think we had something like 21 total people show up last time. And I knew going into this style of show, like you said, you're putting yourself in a place where there's going to be...
Oh, it's a gamble. And I think, being that there are so many comps now, it's even more of a gamble. Because it's like...
There's enough basic bitch shows, but here's my thing, because I just recently saw somebody, and I won't say who it was, but he was pitching a fit because he didn't want to put on his show because there's so many shows out there, and it just sucks because he knows his show is so fucking great, but he doesn't want to put it on because this, that, and the other. And I was kind of like, what a bitch-made mentality. Like, oh, your show is so fucking great and you're so confident in it that you won't do it because you're scared of the competition. Like, no, you're literally admitting that you don't believe in your own product.
Have they put one on before?
They have, yeah. They did one last year. And they said, I'm not going to do it this year because 1, I don't want to, and 2, there's just too many shows. And it's like, so you're admitting that you don't believe in your product. Well, if you don't believe in what the fuck you're selling, why should they?
Right.
I mean, I can see both sides of it because I have seen very good comps, especially in the last 2 years, I would say, take a gigantic hit.
Of course.
For whatever reason. I'm talking about cutting numbers in half. So,
and I get it.
Where, what's the catalyst of this? Is it because there's too many shows? And I think that's what people don't know now. So I can see why people say that. You know what I mean? I really can.
Yeah. Well, hell, how many times have we talked about too many shows?
Sure.
Right? And you and I.
And you've got to point the finger somewhere. That's what guys are doing.
Right.
And I get it, but
you put on a good. The bottom line is, as somebody who started technically 2 businesses, although the Stones and the Tacky are under the Will Development umbrella, and the business we'll talk about later is also under that umbrella. Mm-hmm. But you got to believe in what you have. Mm-hmm. You're going to have rough months. And when it comes to doing a show, it's only once a year.
Right.
Unless you're an asshole who puts on like 5 a year that nobody fucking goes to and none of them are any good.
Well, there's a little bit of that going on too. So.
But you got to believe in what you're doing. And if you believe in what you're doing and you're truly putting out a great product, eventually things will come. So like this time last year, I had about 10 signups. Now, like today, I have 16 so far. Not only do I have 16, but I have a better spread between the classes.
Okay.
I have at least 3 people in 4 of the classes,
right.
Which is great because last year we had a couple classes that only had one person in it. And I hate when that happens, but it does happen sometimes, right? So, I mean, already I'm doing better than I was last year just on signups for this year. And that's because I have a dude coming from like Wyoming or some shit to do this show.
Wow, cool.
I've never even I don't think I've met the guy anyway. I feel bad if I did. Sorry, dude. But like, I've got a dude coming from like across the country just to do this show. And it's that whole thing of I believe in what I'm doing and I know I put on a good product. And I will say that, but I'm not going to say that followed by, but the competition's just too stiff. So I'm not going to do it again because they don't appreciate what I'm giving them anyway. And it's like, well, guess what, motherfucker? Maybe people need to learn the hard way not to do one of 5 fucking shows from dumb fuck to learn. Maybe I should have just done the good show that happened over here.
Well, I mean, I think some of that's got to come from the top too.
Absolutely.
To where, if that is an issue in the state, which it is,
it can be,
to where it needs to be, by the sanction needs to be limited.
We're in a transitory period. We talked about this years ago now, but that's how long it's been. But I've always said I think by like 2027-ish, you will find that the state of Florida will probably have something along the lines of 15-ish.
That would be great.
Absolute fucking bangers. Because the athletes will start paying with their dollar and supporting the actual good shows and the actual good promoters that not only put on good shows, but give a fuck about the athletes.
Well, hopefully people can see that, you know what I mean? But it takes people doing, I think, a few shows, a few comps.
It can.
To figure it out, because they might not know any better.
And like you said, and that's what my biggest fear, and I've talked about it, the fuck on my face. My biggest fear is we have potentially an amazing ambassador for the sport. Go and do one of these absolute travesty shit shows as their first show, and they just think that's what strongman is. And they go, well, I'm not touching that fucking sport ever again. And it's really hard it's sort of like a restaurant where it's like you can serve a perfect burger 30 times to the same customer, but the one fucking time you give them the wrong goddamn thing,
it's going to travel
they're
way
gone.
faster.
Right. They're gone.
They always say bad news travels way faster than good news.
Well, like you said, I've had one fucking stone out of 400 break. One. 400 stones in 12 to 13 years. Stones that have survived 4 years at the official strongman games.
Those are all the same stones.
All the same stones for the last 4 years.
Good to know. Yeah.
Right.
Quality.
But everybody talks about the one.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
That's
human nature.
Sure.
It just is, right? But that's my biggest fear is allowing maybe people that aren't equipped to do shows or perhaps doing the shows for the wrong reasons. Now, I'm not thought police. I don't believe in stepping in and going, well, this person's clearly just doing it for the money. But god damn, at some point, it's like, bro, it's really hard for me to say you're not just trying to do it for the fucking money.
Sure.
Because you clearly don't give a shit about the athletes. You clearly don't care about the quality of the show.
Well,
you don't care about...
Let me put it out there, too. Like, anybody that wants to come on this podcast and talk about it, any promoter, any athletes, whatever, I'm open for it. You know what I mean? Because I think putting it on the table is what's going to get stuff solved.
Justify what you're doing.
Right.
Because if
justify your reason for putting on.
Why are you putting on your show?
Sure. And if there is a reason and it's legit, then I think people then come on here and say that. You know what I mean?
And I'd like to believe that my show and my reason that I just listed is pretty earnest and it's pretty apparent because
Well,
I gave you exactly what you wanted.
Well, we can go back to when we started, or more you, and you did way more than I did. But when we started, there was only a handful.
You had about 4 to 5 comps in the state of Florida,
but they were spread out throughout the state.
Sometimes even less. Sometimes maybe even 3. And you know,
and they were good quality shows.
Right.
So when it came around every year,
you knew it was going to be a banger.
You knew,
And there's a pendulum there, right? There's a quality and quantity, right? Yeah. We happened to go so far
in the other direction that we had a lot of quantity. The problem was we still had those quality shows there too, but they just didn't have as many sufferings.
Well,
that was the problem. That was the suffering, right?
Yeah.
And it was unfortunate, but it's one of those things of like those shows that stuck through it and were actually quality. They stuck around and they're still going to go. You know, there's certain staple shows that would always get competitors no matter what. I feel like Will Strong's Manatee is one of those shows where at this point it's so well established as not only a quality show, but a show, well, that's just it, right? As a quality show, it's always going to have people. No matter what, people are going to sign up for that.
Right. I feel like that's where I want my show to be. I want my show to be like when people see the Psycho Circus is coming back, the circus is back in town, they know it's going to be a good show because they know I will die making sure that it is a fair and efficient show.
Well run.
Those are the only promises I ever made. I said I will die to make sure it is a fair and efficiently run show. That's the only promise. I can't promise you that you'll have fun. How the fuck am I going to make sure you have fun? That's on you, bro. Yeah. You know, I can't promise you that equipment won't break. I hope it doesn't, but I can't make that promise. The only thing I can promise is that when shit does go wrong, because it will, we're going to make the best choice for the athlete.
Right.
Because I think that's something that some promoters, especially ones that don't have the experience of not only competing, and I mean really competing, not like doing 2 fucking shows and thinking you're somebody, and volunteering at every level of show. I mean, I volunteered from the most podunk backyard, you know the shows we're talking about, all the way up to Worlds.
Right.
And everything in between. I've volunteered at and seen how these shows run. And so I know how to pivot and try to make the choices that benefit the athlete the most. Tie goes to the athlete. That is the golden rule when it comes to my shows and my judging. Tie goes to the athlete.
Well,
because they're a customer at that point.
Right.
Sure. And like, outside looking at, and I've done it at all levels. I have volunteered. I have promoted.
Right.
Loaded, spotted.
Yes.
Everything.
We've done all that stuff.
Earn your stripes.
Yes.
I think
absolutely.
One way you can tell, to me, if a comp is being done for right reasons is that if the next year that comp has evolved in some way, whether you have better help, you have all the stuff you need to run the comp, you're not missing, hey man, we don't have this, we don't have that.
Right.
I think if everything's getting crossed off the list, and you see it evolving in the right way, then the person actually just cares about it. You know what I mean? And that shows. Because if not, they're going to make the same mistakes and be like, like, man, I seen this shit last year, dude. Like, you didn't prepare for this after last year?
That makes me happy to say that I have evolved the show just a little bit. We do have 5 events this year instead of just 4.
Yeah.
That was a thing. And I told everybody, as long as I get more competitors this year than I did the previous year, I will do a 3rd one.
Right.
But if I don't, I'm probably just going to call it because I'd rather step out of the way for somebody else that can make this work. But so far it looks like we're going to have more than last year, which is good. But next year, the plan will be to try to appeal to people that actually want a heavier show. So we'll have 2 of the similar event, two press events, whether it's, a yoke press and an axle. But one of them's going to be weighted like a normal show would be weighted. So for like the 180 class, you would see a 220 axle for a local show. Right now, I usually take all the events and I drop them about 10-ish%.
From national weight or?
No, from like a normal local level.
Okay.
So like normally, like I said, you'd see an axle for like a 180 or 175 guy at a local show somewhere around the 220 for like a clean and press. I drop it down to like 210, maybe even 205, just because I understand you've got 2 different events you could potentially be training for. Now, at the end of the day, and this is what I tell people, like, how the hell do I train for your show? Well, press. And you'll probably be fine on the press.
Yeah, I mean, you
deadlift.
You want to be rounded on stuff. I mean, and that's kind of what strongman's all about. Like,
that's kind of why I do my show. But like, I'm trying to evolve and I'm trying to make the experience as good as I can for the spirit of it. Like I said, because I'm with you. I want that old school feeling back. I want that, like, what are we doing today? And then I just literally run a lottery roller and I go,
right.
I hope you train this
B12
because literally that's what I have this year. Like literally, I hope that's what you trained this year.
Yeah, And that is a tough sell because, you know, people are so into being, you know, they want to know everything that's going on, and it just seems like that's the way the sport has went. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear to see when you see the questions that are coming out. Like, I will never forget this. Like, one of the questions for Nationals, I think it was 2 years ago, it was Masters Nationals, and one of the questions was from a woman asking what color the shirts were going to be so she could match her hair to it. And I was like, this was a serious question.
Okay.
I'm like, holy, is this where we are right now?
Okay.
This is where the hair has to oh, all right. I was like,
And
wow, dude.
You know what?
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
True story.
Veteran-
True story.
Veteran
Did she
competitor.
actually match?
I don't know.
They're gonna have problems at shows. Every show's gonna have a problem, and like how you respond to those problems to me says a lot about you as a promoter. And I'm not saying what's a right answer, what's a wrong answer, but one topic that I still don't believe was the right answer was the Florida dumbbell situation. Now I don't give a shit. I got fourth in that show at 5 guys.
That was the one at Mojo's.
Yes.
Florida Strongest Man.
I want to say 3 years ago now, give or take.
About that, yep.
And it's the only time I actually competed in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a single chance of hell of getting real weight on that dumbbell. Ironically, the heavier weight actually got closer than we did on the lighter weight when we tried it again. But I remember when it happened and we found out the dumbbell was misloaded. Now,
So yeah, we had a misload at Florida Strongest Man. This is recapping, and I believe we talked about this with Schultz, Zach Schultz, in that I think they had it loaded for my division because my division that year was 165.
Yeah.
And I think that
I believe ours was 145.
145. So
or something along those
papers got crossed, whatever. We had it. I think that was the only misload because Allen's comp is pretty
As
small
long as-
for not having it.
And the only problem was, I guess it had end caps. I think was it a
That's
big
correct.
dog or whatever? Or
No, it wouldn't have been a big dog. That would have been a. It was a Beast Metals.
Beast Metals.
Yes.
Right, yeah. One of the other old school, right? OG
not-
strongman.
You do not see those anymore.
OG strongman
Sure.
equipment. But they had the end caps on. Hey, look, shit happens.
Mhm.
I didn't pitch a big fit about it because, again, I wasn't going to get the 145. But I understand why the athletes who thought they had a chance to actually get that weight were upset. And my response was, so Zach just wins that event no matter what anybody does, right? Treat it
So-
like a Trump weight.
He ended up,
I know exactly what happened.
but so he ended up pressing the 165.
For one. And he was
For
the
one.
only athlete to do it. He was also
Sure.
the first athlete to go.
But they caught the misload. I was there, but I was competing, so I'm asking. Okay, so they caught the misload after he pressed it, correct?
After everybody had already gone.
So was Zach the last one to go?
Zach was the first.
He was the first to go.
Right. So it went Zach, and then as I recall,
So everybody tried that?
everybody tried it.
I did not know that.
Every single person attempted that
I
165.
did not know that. So
Right.
once they caught it, then everybody had to go back and do the 145.
So it was my understanding that one of the athletes, I don't know who, so that's why I won't say names. I actually don't know which athlete pitched a fit, but what I had heard was one of the athletes in the 175 class that day had pitched a fit and basically said, well, it's not fair because we trained for a certain weight and that's not the weight we had to use.
Okay.
And so the response to that was,
Okay, so the one Zach pressed a 165 deadlift.
dumbbell,
Or I'm sorry,
right?
165 circus dumbbell.
right,
A deadlift.
impressive.
Hell yeah.
That's very strong. Everybody attempts it.
Yes.
Who catches the misload?
I don't know who caught the misload. All I know is one of the competitors
Catches it.
catches it and says, hey, that's not fair. We trained for 145 or whatever the weight was supposed to be.
So everybody reattempts.
The response was that everybody has to reattempt it. Now, I said, I don't agree with that. And the guy, I feel terrible because I can't remember his name. He got fifth. He was right behind me. I can't remember his name. I don't think he competes anymore. But him and I were both basically like, I don't even want to fucking try it again. Like, I know I'm not going to get it anyway. I've already trying out what it's whatever. You know what I mean? I'll just take the 0, bro. I don't need to be embarrassed twice, you know? And when the option was to go again, basically the other two athletes other than Zach were like, yeah, we'll try it again because we've got a chance to get it, right? And I'm like, well, if that's the way it's going to be, at least let Zach go last so he knows the numbers he has to beat. And they're like, no, Zach's going first again.
Okay.
And I'm like, that doesn't seem fair to me.
Right.
I think they should have treated it like
Kind of like a Trump.
like a Trump weight. Like, well, he got one rep there, so he should get max points no matter what. And that's not the way they ran that.
I mean, hindsight, obviously, but that would have made more sense for sure. But,
Or at the very least, let him go last so he knows the amount of reps he needs to beat.
Right.
That to me seemed the fairest. I'm like, well, he's already proven he's stronger than us on this event.
So
isn't that the point?
Did he win the 140, the dumbbell anyway?
He did end up winning it. I believe he pressed the 140 for like 3 or 4.
Okay.
And then everybody else was a number behind him.
Right.
But to me, that's just an example of perhaps not the best response to a problem at a show. I think there were better ways to have handled that situation.
And it's hindsight, and so I mean, hindsight, kind of looking back,
it's easy to say what is it, Sunday morning
quarterback, armchair quarterback.
Yeah, Sunday morning quarterback. Like, now that I know what happened, I can tell you exactly what you should have done.
Sure.
And to me, that's something where I think some competitors need to learn to just kind of shut the hell up. Where it's like, you've never done this, you've never put on a show. Don't sit here and try to tell promoters how they should be running a show. You can give advice and like, hey, don't you think maybe we should have done this?
And there's never going to be perfection in this. So yeah, I mean, a learning curve for sure. And it doesn't matter how many comps you do. Like, I guarantee you they have issues at World's Strongest Man. They have issues at OSG. They're going to have, and you learn from that, and you keep, hopefully you learn and you keep moving on and you evolve from it.
And speaking of comps that had quite a few issues, which you guys had brought it up vaguely on one of them. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but it was the show you were trying to think of was the All-American Strongman Games. That's where the promoter showed up 2 hours late to his own show.
I did not go to that, but I heard, I think we had someone there maybe, and I'd heard it. The promoter was 2 hours late. Like, the equipment wasn't even there or something like that.
So, and I actually had a very long discussion with the promoter of that show.
Were you at that? I
ended up showing up around like 11 thinking I would be just showing up late.
Late, yeah.
No, I wasn't showing up as Will USS rep. I was just showing up as Will Development just to hang out and enjoy a strongman show.
Sure.
Right.
That's the only reason I was going. I was not there to help out. I was not there as no official capacity whatsoever. And I said that right when I walked up. I said, I'm here under no official capacity. I am not going to help out.
Just a fan today.
Just a fan to watch some boys do some stuff. And I got there, and they literally just finished warm-ups for the press.
Wow.
And I was like, I thought this show was supposed to start at like 9 or 10. Like, what the fuck is going on? So I find out that the promoter ended up showing up about 2 hours late. Now, I hate that the word story makes it sound like I'm saying he's made it up, but the way the events were laid out to me and to everybody else was that because of the hurricanes around that time, their original venue got moved.
Okay.
And then the second venue they got ended up canceling on them or something along those lines. So they got this venue, which was honestly a really nice venue. Don't ask me where it was, but it was nice. It was cool. It was like a water park kind of deal thing. It was really nice in there. I thought it was a good setting.
Honestly, I never heard hardly anything about this comp beforehand.
Right. Truth be told, I was asked on a Wednesday Q&A what I thought about the show, and I was very candid where I said I'm very leery of first-time promoters, especially ones that have not done any competitions in the sport, and especially ones that have never volunteered in the sport. I also get leery when I see promoters using flashy words. That's a big red flag to me. If your show is good enough, you don't need to use fancy words. You don't have to say like, it's the greatest thing ever.
So I don't know who this guy. So is the guy a competitor, or he has gone something more? He has gone back to just competing. Okay, and I don't want to get too far into it, but he and I did have a conversation afterward, where he basically asked my advice. What do we call it? Like a post-action review, right? Sure. And I essentially told him at the end of the day, I think you need to sit the fuck
down for a while. I think you need to go to every single show in the state and volunteer.
Yeah, if you're going to be a promoter, you want to...
Or compete, one of the two.
Know the bases, yeah.
I said, you need to become a part of the community. And I said, not for nothing, this is the kind of the ugly side of promoting people don't want to talk about, but the kind of PR you get from being out there and volunteering, nothing matches that. The fact that I can literally walk to any show in a Hawaiian t-shirt, cargo shorts, and flip-flops, and if I'm wearing a hat, they know I'm there to work. If I'm not wearing a hat, they know I'm there to watch. So I'm usually wearing a hat because I'm usually working. And then they see me doing that and they respect that because I'm one of you. Right. I'm in the shit with you guys. I'm trying to make this happen just like everybody else. You know what I mean? And so I told him, like, hey, you want good PR? Go fucking volunteer. Show your face as a volunteer. Show you're not there to get anything. You're there to give something.
Here's something that's not really talked about either, is like, as far as if you are a volunteer and you're like spotting and loading, let me tell you something. If you go to a real heavy comp and you are spotting and loading for the day, you were the most beat up by tenfold usually than you ever were as a competitor.
Well,
it is absolutely barbaric.
Do the math, right? When you're competing, forget the mental aspect of it.
Sure.
You only have to be on for about 5 total minutes.
And think about these guys resetting all day long.
You have one class that has 20 athletes.
It is brutal, man.
The heavy yokes that have to be pulled back, the heavy farmers that have to be pulled back.
Everything's sandbags now, resets, and there goes back to, the promoter needs to have a big pool to rotate through so you're not killing these guys. Because I'll be honest with you, if I go to a comp like that and they're killing me, you don't have to worry about me coming back the next year, because it lets me know you don't care enough about the guys working and helping you. Because you do need a big rotate. You need more than what you need.
That's what you always 18 people I have written down. I only need 4 of them.
And I usually end up with 10. If you can pepper everybody through there, like 10, 15 guys, everybody's happy.
Right.
Feed them. Right. Feed your guys, man.
Exactly.
Give them a contest shirt.
Pay for their parking if they need it. Sure. You name it.
Because you cannot run these comps without these guys.
So and then go back to the All-American Games. That was another sign of I will put it tactfully, an inexperienced promoter. He had 2 volunteers because about 6 of them just didn't show up. And I was like,
if you have been experienced in sport, you know that's exactly you need to overbook at least 3 times what you think you need. Yeah.
Even if you are a competitor and you volunteer, talk to experienced promoters and get their input, their brain.
And most guys will be very open with you and tell you, hey man, this is what I would do. Right. Anywhere from checklists, anything like that. They're usually going to kind of,
They can tell you all the speed bumps that they've already had to traverse.
Every single thing.
Again,
it's never going to be perfect, for sure. No. You know what I mean? And that's so what happened to him, I'll just say allegedly, I want to believe him. I'll put it that way, because I can't believe somebody would just bullshit their way that much. So I'm just going to say I want to believe it, but allegedly what happened was he couldn't set up the night before at the event. The particular venue just would not allow that to happen because they had night events, so they sure want to do it, right? Fair enough. So his plan was to bring equipment the morning of. Well, the truck was so loaded with, I believe, the power stairs and something else. I don't remember what other pieces of equipment. Very large pieces of equipment. And apparently they blew a top. And so U-Haul, or whatever company he was using to move the equipment, said, hey.
Option 1, we send a truck out there, and you can have a new truck out there in 25 minutes, Option 2, but you have to move all your equipment to that new truck, right? Or you're going to have to be sitting there waiting for somebody to come out with a tire, and that takes a very, very long time for that to happen. And so they were like, well, there's no way I can get this equipment over there, so I guess we're just going to wait for a ride and get over there as soon as we can, and we'll just run essentially 4 events. And it was the Hercules hold they were supposed to have. So Hercules hold got dropped and got changed to a axle clean and
barbell clean and press, which my response to that was the wrong choice. You should have just changed it to something maybe not as fun, but a fun was it. You took out a grip event and changed it to a press event. That's right. Don't do that. Right. No, that's a bad idea. You lost the power stairs, and they just didn't even replace that event. Now, here's the goofy part. We had a show that had, I think, 35 people, maybe 40. Let's just say 40. Oh, let's say 50. We get the shit. I know it wasn't that many. 4 events, and yet we still weren't done until 9 p.m. Yeah. And then there was other problems, like the promised swag bags. They were, I'll say, embellished. They were
expecting to get one of those kind of drawstring backpack style things. It ended up being like the size of a fucking fanny pack. There were supposed to be trophies.
No trophies.
There were no trophies
at all.
Again, it's night. It is dark. It is like 9, and there are no trophies to give the competitors.
This is called catastrophic failure at all levels at that point.
One of the other spectators that were there with me had said, if I showed up
do you know what the sign up was, money wise?
I believe it was about $100.
Holy shit, dude.
Which is when I saw that, I said, well, guess what, dumbasses? Guess my show costs $100 too, because I can actually put on a good fucking show. And if you have a fucking problem with how much I'm charging, blame your fellow competitors for paying for that dumb shit. Yeah. Honestly.
Jeez, man.
Like, at some point, competitors, you guys got to take some fucking responsibility for falling for this shit.
Yeah.
Well, and Yeah, the amount of competitors is going to steer where a comp goes because
Right.
I've already, I've heard talks this year of people, that's been in the game a long time that are just on the verge of giving up because the numbers have dropped so bad. And these are good comps, solid comps.
I understand.
Good help, good judging, good scoring, the whole nine, good trophies, good everything. And, people are only going to take so much. So it's kind of hard to nail down where the problem is because I know some of these comps still have good promotion.
Sure.
But there it goes back to, maybe a little bit too many comps here and there for sure.
And I have this kind of, I want to put it tactfully because I know a couple of the shows and I do respect the people who put them on and I respect these shows as kind of staples, especially in Florida strongman. But I will say, at some point you got to kind of look at yourself and go, maybe we got too comfortable.
Sure.
Maybe we didn't have competition for almost 10 years there and we took that for granted.
Could be some of it.
And then now that we have competition, we're not understanding the pivot where the sport is actually going.
That's the word I was going to use. You have to pivot, and it's figuring out how to pivot.
Right. Because here's the thing: if you want to tout out that, let's just
Swamp City?
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple shows in the state that like to tout that they're the heaviest show.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Understand, much like myself, who runs a goofy styled show, yuck, that's going to limit your pool of athletes you're going to pull from.
For sure.
You can't bitch when you say, I only want the strongest motherfuckers out here, and then you get all 8 of them.
Yeah, there's only so many.
Well, guess what, fucker? You got what you wanted. Don't cry to me because you got what you wanted.
Yeah, there's only so many high level.
Sorry.
In any state, you're going to have a limited.
And the other thing is, too, like, elitists. Hey, I'm right there with you, Hoss. I get it, too.
Mm-hmm.
But I only care about elitism at the actual top.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to local strongman, most people, when they go out, they want to lift some weights. They want to take some pictures with their family.
Big novice classes, for sure.
They want to go to the water cooler on Monday and say, look what I did over the weekend. You know what I mean? I lifted a car over the weekend. Isn't that cool?
There again, human nature, want to be a part of something.
Right.
And some of that's been watered down because some of these comps have definitely catered to the lighter side.
Yeah. But there's room for both. I mean, I think my biggest... mind-splitting moment, because I've been here for a very long time. I've been in the sport for a very long time, and I was friends with Donnie Kiernan for quite a while. He was the first show that ever had my stones in him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
it's Tampa Strongest, Tampa Bay Strongest.
Yes, and that was, at one point, Florida's longest-running show consecutive, which was, what an honor to be a part of that lineage, honestly.
Because I think... Did he take that over from somebody? Do you remember?
I don't know. I know he was always really close to Tom Roman of Roman and Roman. I don't know if Roman ever ran his own show and Donnie. I don't think so.
I don't remember. But I remember that comp was around a long time. I remember it used to be at that bar. Oh, fuck.
Jiffy something.
No.
Quaker Steak.
Quaker Steak and Lube.
Yep.
And Clearwater, I think that is.
Yes. And then he moved it to the Valor Center out there.
That's in Seminole.
Yeah, in Seminole.
Mm-hmm.
And Donnie understood that as a promoter. Like, hey, the majority of the people that are going to actually pay to do a show, they just want to come out, blah, blah, blah. And it's like me, too. Like, sometimes as a competitor, I've had to, like, chill people down. I've been known to say this exact phrase. Dude, you need to sit down and fucking relax. We all paid $75 for a T-shirt, and so our mom can watch us zero an event.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Chill, bro. Like, this is not fucking war. This isn't the end of the world. Like, your odds of dying from an enemy combatant here are basically zero.
Right.
Well, I had some of the same conversation with him years ago when I used to, me and Weech put on Central Florida Strongest Man, and it's actually cycling back through because we used to put on a heavy comp because I was under the impression everybody thought like me, which was not correct.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
For sure. And I think a lot of us still fall victim to this, and I still think that way in a lot of times because if I get into something, I'm going to get into it with the expectations like I want to go to this next step, this next level.
I want to be at the top.
And I remember Donnie Kiernan telling me the same thing. He's like, listen, he goes, you're catering to about 5% of the population in strongman in Florida, which was a way smaller pool back then. You have to understand.
Yeah.
How many years ago was that? Our last comp was shit.
Oh.
No, it would have been 2011, 2012.
Yeah. I'm thinking about when we got started.
It's probably shortly before I got in.
Yeah.
13 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember getting so pissed, man, like a lot of promoters are right now.
Right.
So now that I think about it, it's another cycle coming around.
Right.
Because Donnie's comp tended to be a little lighter, a big novice division, and our weights were set higher because I wanted to have that step. If you want to go to nationals, you have to get on these steps.
You got to be ready. Yeah.
And he basically told me, like, you're catering to 5% of the, which was true. And I didn't want to hear the shit, but it is true. And it pissed me off, dude.
It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's the reality of it.
I just didn't understand it.
A lot of people just want to come out and have a good time on a Saturday
with
the boys.
And I'll be honest with you, I still don't understand it because I'm a very competitive person, and a lot of people are.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to play the game, and I stopped promoting.
And I think the only maybe saving grace I could give to your psyche is saying that 9 times out of 10, the strongest guy is still going to win anyway, even at a lighter show like that. Usually the strongest person does win.
That is true, but I will also add this, and I tell my guys this all the time, my athletes, my guys. I will tell you right now, on the other hand of that, the other side of that, you were way more apt to get your ass beat at a light show because now the numbers are so close. If it's not like something really heavy that's really setting you apart, now it's become it's a cardio game.
Yeah, yeah.
And I want to say back then when we were promoting, it was more about raw strength, like the traditional events, like you said. That's what we had, and the shit was heavy. And you knew if you did well there, you could probably, because we would back off about 10% off of national weight, so we still had a heavy comp, which that was your step into getting. If you win there and you're going to nationals, you're probably going to, you do a good cycle training into nationals, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that was the case with me. I did okay at these state level comps, and I went and I did well at nationals too. But when Donnie said that, and I'll never forget him saying that, and I was like, dude, I don't want to hear that shit. Because I didn't understand it.
When you feel like I can understand the mentality you're coming from too. It feels like it's diluting the pool to a point of like, why are we even bothering with this shit?
And that was where
because if we're not going to be the best, then why the fuck are we even doing it?
And that's my mentality to this day. Is like, and that's why you get called a gatekeeper and this. And you need gatekeeping.
I think gatekeeping is generally a good thing.
Sure.
I think when you have too much of anything is a bad thing. And I think at some point somebody has to pull the reins and go, oh, hang on a second. Like maybe we shouldn't just let any Tom, Dick, and Harry put on a show.
Well, I think what happened too is a lot of fluff came into the sport when you started hearing, oh man, this sport is for everyone. And I'm like, what? Like I was in a sport that was just barbaric and if you couldn't do it, you couldn't do it. You know what I mean?
And I think that's the midpoint we need to find, and that we will eventually settle in. Like when I mentioned earlier, we're going to have 15 absolute bangers. Guess what? Probably only 3 or 4 of them are going to be really fucking heavy shows.
Sure.
The other 11 are going to be what we might consider more conditioning shows or more, call it approachable. That's the word I like to use, more approachable shows.
Yeah. And
because the reality is you cannot survive.
I'm not saying that you don't need those. You do.
Right.
But right now, and like I said, it's like really coming clear to me right now. It's like, it's just another cycle of this shit to where, because our show did the same thing. We used to have a ton of people.
Yes.
And then towards the end, we canceled the last year because I had like 10 or 12 people sign up, and we're used to having 60 people sign up.
Right.
And it was because of you had this light wave coming in, and I was like, I'm not playing this shit. And I didn't want to stick around, to be honest with you.
Right.
To see it through.
Maybe
to wait
suffer
on it,
through 2 years.
To wait on it come back to me.
Right.
And now, like, I would love to put it on another comp, but I don't believe
put it?
I don't believe in stepping on people's feet. Like it would be like me saying, "Hey, Will, I'm going to do one the week before you."
Well, and I tell you what, that I got very lucky with my show because originally it was on July 5th. Now I had no choice but to put it on that date because that's where the expo.
Right.
I'm beholden to it. Right.
That's a little bit different too when you have like Steve's comp that he just did.
Right.
Kind of got right in front of Mike's show.
And right behind Woody's.
But he was presented, would you like to do your comp at
Raymond James
Tampa Bay Stadium?
Yeah.
Anybody.
Nobody could turn that down, and nobody could be mad at him for doing it.
And I was at Mike's comp as well, and Mike Mike's a very smart guy.
Well, and that was the thing too. Steve did the right thing and contacted Mike and said, hey, look, I've got this opportunity, man. I'm going to do it regardless of how you feel.
Sure.
But I want, I
told him the same thing. I said, that's admirable that you.
It's just a courtesy.
Well, the same thing happened to me. So I decided one of the biggest complaints, lies, I got from people that said they were going to sign up. You weren't, you're lying. To my show last year was that it was too close to USS Nats.
Sure.
That was the bullshit story they all gave me. And so I said, okay, when the USA Fit Games ended up not being run this year. I said, I'm going to take that opportunity and I'm going to change it. So I pushed it 2 more weeks ahead to the 19th. Now we're basically a month from that.
Oh, wow. Right. And I said, cool. So now you got no bullshit excuse to not do it. None of you fuckers have signed up yet because I'm just lying bullshitters. Another tip for a promoter, if you're talking to a promoter, don't fucking tell me you're going to sign up for my show every time you see me. Mm-hmm. Just sign up for the show. Right. And I'll see you then, guys.
Can I ask you a question?
What's that? No.
Well, and that was a pretty, as a promoter, frustrating thing, and it still happens today, is where people are known in strongman to wait until the last minute to sign up. And I can see the side of that because you don't know if you're going to get hurt in the cycle, in the training cycle. You don't know.
But I'll also, even though I say no refunds, guys, I will give you a fucking refund if something goes wrong.
If it's legit.
I don't even care. I'll just give you a refund anyway. Right. Unless I've already ordered a shirt, then I'll be like, hey, can you give me like $12 for the shirt I had to buy for you, bro?
Right.
And that was frustrating, like trying to plan ahead, like, because we'd be like, we took, time and money to get good trophies, and you're wondering, like, well, hell, I don't know how many I'm going to have. So you had to have a pretty solid cutoff date. Like, listen, and people still do. Yeah. But that is frustrating for the promoter to be like, hey, we got 12, or 20 people sign up right now, and then 20 more people sign up. And you're like, then you're kind of struggling like shit. Right. Shirts, we need to double the shirts. We need to do this. So
trophies, medals, whatever you're getting.
You end up seeing all aspects of it.
Thank God I make my own trophies and everything. Mm-hmm. So it's like that's that part of it. Now the shirts, my God, I won't even get into the story of what happened with the shirts last year.
I remember that.
Yeah. That's I that was the straw that broke me. I was doing fine, if you can call 2 hours of sleep that entire week fine. And then that happened, and I snapped. I have a scar on one of my hands from taking my sunglasses off of my head and just ripping them in half. Yeah. And just screaming. Because to me, the simplest fucking thing is t-shirts. And I was about to have my first show with no fucking t-shirts.
Wow. It happens.
Through no fault of my own. I'm literally staring at the trailer that has my shirts. Yeah. And I told the girl behind the counter, I'm like, I'll buy you a new fucking lock. Let's go cut it off of the trailer. Yeah. The shit was supposed to be delivered yesterday. This is bullshit, But anyway, that's bullshit.
The backside of promoting, man. There's a lot of moving
people
parts.
Need to learn that shit when it comes to being competitors. Like, dude, there's a big give and take between all of us. This is the most important day of your life because you are competing and it's your first show and you're super excited, blah, blah, blah. Right. I am dealing with 25 of you.
Right. Yeah.
Or more.
And shit at an expo or shit at an arena. Yeah, shit, you name it, and all the bullshit we have to jump through for all that kind of stuff.
A lot of different stuff comes with that for sure.
We were talking about something, though. What were we talking about? Shows? Because I meant to go back to something, and I forgot what it was. We were talking about shows, and then we were talking about shows not running, catering.
Well, while you're thinking about that, let me ask you a question. For real, this time. For real this time.
For real, Pete?
So we got some questions. I'm just going to go intersperse.
Cool.
So Sean Fenley, again.
What a surprise.
Sending a bunch of questions for you. So first one kind of applies to what we're talking about right now. How many shows nationwide do you sponsor a year? I see your name everywhere.
That is actually great because I had that topic on my thing to talk about. So because I've heard especially Scott talk about it, how challenging it can be for a sponsor with so many shows, right? It makes you have to be very picky, choosy. So 1 year I had sponsored 33 shows all across the United States.
Okay.
A lot of them were here in Florida. But 33 shows. Now that means providing tacky or just a couple $100 or stones were a lot of the ones here in Florida. 33 shows. The next year, I did 7.
Yeah.
Because I realized what shows I was actually getting an ROI from.
Absolutely.
Which shows were actually doing a good job as a show. And I wanted to actually have my name be a part of.
Right.
And so on and so forth. So how many shows do I sponsor? Right now, as far as I know, I think it's about 7 all across the United States right now, give or take. Maybe more like 5 this year. Had a tough fourth quarter of last year, and hell, this first quarter's not been great either. But so I have been approached to sponsor some shows, but I've become very, very picky, choosy about what shows I sponsor, mostly because I don't want my name associated with a shit show.
Of course not.
And talking about sponsoring local shows too, I have decided if your show has stones in it, either my shows are a part of it or I don't sponsor it.
because having my logo next to bad stones is a bad look.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at you, USS Nats from like 4 years ago.
Well, thinking about like what you do, if you sell me a set of stones,
yeah,
and they're great stones. I don't have stones at my gym for very obvious reasons for me.
Don't blame you.
But it's almost like I'm not going to be a return customer anytime soon. No. How many sets of stones am I going to buy?
Well, and especially because all of my stones...
If they're not being destroyed, then...
All of mine come warranted. So if like they break...
That's a tough sell.
I just replace it for free.
Yeah, and that's a really tough business to be in. Like, basically no return customers.
Right. There's never... it is non-consumable.
Sure.
You're buying it once.
Yeah, so and there's only so many people that do strongman or want stones in their place. Or
I mean, this is kind of a good place for me to go into a couple like exclusives I was going to drop on this podcast, which is I am officially, and I'll put it in quotes, retiring from stonemaking. And by that, I simply mean my prices are going up to the point where most people are not going to want to buy from me anymore.
So will you'll make them for certain people?
I will still work with shows, and I will still run. What I've done for a lot of years now is if you want stones in your show and you want like brand new stones for your show, what I do is I will make the stones and we will auction them off leading up to the show. And then we take 80% of that, put it to charity, 20% goes to me.
Cool. Gotcha.
And I've done that several times throughout the year. It's a win-win-win for everybody because usually the athletes get more affordable stones. Yeah, they're once used, but who gives a damn?
Who cares?
The show gets brand new stones for the show that they're running. Charity gets a little money. I get to have a write-off at the end of the year.
Right.
And I get my money back on what I spent. Not so much my time, but
materials.
I get materials
what
back.
About, is that tacky as well? Or are you still doing tacky and stuff
I will
like that?
continue doing tacky, no problem. The willdevelopment.net will still be up and running. Tacky is no problem. That is a consumable worldwide thing, but it's just after 13 years of stones, I've gotten to the point where I fucking hate it.
Time to get out.
Hate doing it. I have hated it for about 3 years now, and I've just kept doing it.
So what are you going to pivot to now? Like, what's the next step?
So right now, Will Development with tacky and all that stuff will continue as it always has. I have no problem doing that. I like doing that kind of stuff. And the next thing that I'm launching is Buff Butter. The website is already up, and like I talked about earlier, I always, when I make a product, and I missed a part there. I had said, I like to make a product that I want to exist, but I'm only going to get involved in the market if I think I can do some aspect of that product better than what already exists. Because if I can't improve upon it, I'm not going to bother getting in the way of it. That's why the wet tacky took off the way it did, because there was already a couple wet tackies on the market, but I said, you guys are missing this part of the market. This is what people want because I want it. So I put my wet tacky out and people liked it a lot. And when it comes to the Buff Butter, which is the brand name, I was using, the Dial soap for years, just a regular orange bar. It was yellow. It was the only thing that kept me clean. It was the only thing that cleaned me off. And then some ruling came down the way and they changed their formula and the shit just stopped working for me. So I just started making my own soap out of just traditional method, tallow, olive oil, coconut oil, and then I was adding in tea tree and orange for antibacterial. And then you mix like lye with water, and then you 6 weeks later you got soap. And the shit just worked.
You brought some with you?
I did. I brought it. And
shameless plug.
Absolutely shameless plug. I'll tell you the shameless.
Disgusting.
I'm taking that home. That's mine.
The only part that really pisses me off is I didn't actually come up with the idea for this packaging. So it's Buff Butter, right? And you've got the angry bull, right, as the logo. And the only part that pisses me off is this is butcher paper.
Oh, okay.
Wrapping this, which made my you got to tear the thing.
The seal.
You got to tear the seal. Yeah, tear the seal, John.
So weak, Jesus.
Got to tear the seal, bro.
Yeah, doing some grip training, bud.
I got the heat.
I'm gonna edit
shrink
that
on it.
part out.
Yeah.
Nobody saw a thing.
Grip training much?
Yeah. So
popcorn.
my wife actually came up with the idea of wrapping it with butcher paper. She's like, it matches.
It's unique. Yeah.
It matches the brand too.
Hardcore.
It's like butter, and I'm like, so that's why. I came up with the soap, and I've been doing the soap for years, and then I gave some to a buddy, and he was like, dude, that soap's really nice. I really like it. It kind of reminds me of, like, just traditional soap. And I was like, cool. Yeah. And then I started making just whipped tallow moisturizer just for myself because I felt like the lotions I was using just weren't working. And so I've been making this exact thing for years just for myself, and I gave some to a couple friends of mine.
I feel like I'm on QVC right now.
You kind of are. You kind of are.
Like 12 o'clock in the night, morning,
Right. But
I come home drunk.
Well, if you call right now,
There's only 4 left.
Right now.
That's better.
Yeah.
And
The next 4 callers.
I gave some to a friend of mine, and he used it on his daughter that has eczema, and he said within 2 days her eczema was gone.
Wow.
Really?
And I was like, cool, I can't make that claim, but if you want to leave that review, you can do that. You know what I mean? And then I gave it to another friend of mine that has eczema, and he used it on his skin. Within 2 days, he was cleared up.
Wow.
And I was like, cool, so I can't make that claim.
So Will
But
Development,
people can-
the soap maker. No longer the stone maker.
So, yeah, stones are,
And lotion.
like I said, stones are done. Moisturizer.
Moisturizer.
Cream.
Cream. I like cream, too. The cream is good. So, I mean, I wanted to come out with it, and the difference between this and, say, other ones on the market, number one, they're more affordable because that's what I wanted on the market. And they're more affordable because I'm not wasting money on packaging.
Sure.
Again, 14 cents is what I spent on packaging for these things. So I can come in about $3 to $4 less than most people sell this exact style of soap for. But again, it's affordable. It doesn't need to cost $14 a bar.
Right.
And then the same on the tallow. Mine doesn't have anything you don't need. Some of them have honey in them and all this other shit. You don't need all that shit. Like this works just fine. It's whipped. It's got some olive oil in it, and it's got some fragrance in it.
Yeah.
That's antibacterial. That's all there is to it. And I come in about $6 under market for that too. Because again, I'm not wasting money on packaging.
So, one thing, this is kind of off topic, that I want to touch on before we cruise out of here is when we were talking in Tallahassee at Fane's show, I remember you had brought back up your heart condition, which I'll be honest with you, I totally forgot about.
Yeah.
So, take us through a little bit of that, and because I'd forgotten all about it, because whenever I heard about it originally, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people know the history.
Yeah, I don't talk about it often unless you see me at a show with my shirt off, which is not too often because I sweat so much, so I even wear shirts.
I don't ever want to see that.
During stones. Dude, I'm a lightweight. Relax, okay?
Yeah.
You know it looks good. So yeah, I was born with congenital heart defects, specifically 3 of them, pulmonic stenosis, transposition of the great vessels, and ventricular septal defect.
So dumb this down a lot.
My basic understanding of these 3 is essentially the 2 big ins and outs were switched.
Okay.
One of them had a hole, and one of them didn't.
Wow.
Yeah. One had a hole where it wasn't supposed to have a hole.
So you're born with this.
Yeah. I came out and was like turning blue because my body was not getting the air it needed. And they were able to do essentially emergency surgery where I have a really big scar on my back. And that was the first surgery they ever did. I mean, they're working on a heart that's like the size of an almond.
Yeah, you're a newborn baby.
Newborn. Yeah.
Sure.
Don't ask me how they can even do that back in 93. They were able to do that, So then I want to say there was 2 more open hearts by the time I was like 5 or 6.
Wow.
Definitely one. I think it was a total of 3 or 4 before I was like 5 or 6. And then there was the last open heart I had was when I was 12. And I actually remember that one. And that is, oh boy, that is a shit show, let me tell you, boy. And then had a valve replacement when I was 23.
It's just like a mechanical valve, or is it like?
So the one that's in there
pig
now.
valve.
So I had a cadaver valve.
Yeah.
From when I was 12 till 20 something.
Wow.
So another man was inside me, I assume.
Yeah. Okay.
Kept my blood flowing.
Whatever you're into.
Hey, got my heart pumping.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
The podcast took a turn.
Hey,
all right, guys. We'll see you later.
Yeah, don't be shy. So and then this one they replaced it. They call it a melody valve, and essentially it's my understanding it's basically plastic.
So when you have this done, do they tell you like there's a certain amount of mileage you get out of this, and then you have to have it replaced?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I always knew I had to get it replaced, but that was literally because I was growing and my heart was still growing a little bit, so it would literally size out. Now, basically, what happens is it just collects like calcium and calcifies and stuff like that because it's a foreign object in the body,
right?
And the body doesn't like that.
Do they? Like the people, I mean, do they know, any doctors know that you do strongman, and do they advise against stuff like that? Or?
I had one cardiologist, and part of the challenge was because I'm a congenital patient, I had to go to pediatrics.
Okay.
And the idea of congenital or pediatric cardiology for adults is a relatively new phenomenon. John,
sorry.
Every time, man.
I know.
Lord.
Well, you did it once. I had to up you one. 2 to 1.
Gotta keep the crown.
2 to 1.
And so, I mean, again, imagine me, 28, still kind of look the same, beard, look like I work out, and I'm in a room with a bunch of babies. Because most of the people that were born with what I had or similar things, they didn't really make it to be older than me. I'm one of the older ones, and I'm sure there's other people out there that, I don't know the exact number, but yeah, there's not a lot of us. So like the field of like congenital defect for adults adults with congenital defects is a kind of a newer field. I mean, we're talking maybe 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
It's existed as a specialty. So before that, I had to go to like literally a pediatric cardiologist, and I had one, and he retired. He was like the third person to ever hold me as a baby, and then he retired, and then I got one, and this dude was dope. I like this guy. He was super cool because I was like, yeah, I do strongman, and I was like, hey, you want to be fucking candid, bro? Eventually, there's going to be some extra vitamins I take. Mm-hmm. It's just part of the game, dude.
Right.
And he was like, cool. Not 100% sure what's going to happen to you, but I'd love to be a part of it.
Is it something like when you got into the sport like that you worried about? Like, did you think about like, man, should I really be straining? I mean, because strongman is brutal on the cardiovascular system.
No, and part of the reason is because essentially when it's repaired, I have a normal heart.
Okay.
To an extent, there are still things like my heartbeat sounds weird. It doesn't sound like a ba-bum, ba-bum. It sounds like a ba-whoo, ba-whoo. So it sounds different. Mm-hmm. And like, there's weird things about me. Like if I go underwater, like if my chest goes underwater, I can't breathe right anymore because that little bit of compression on that valve fucks me up. I lose air.
You think that it's like?
But other than that, I'm normal.
You think it's affected your cardio at all, though? Like, or you don't have anything to go off of because you've been like this your whole life?
I'm a fish in water. You know what I mean? I think I have noticed it is challenging for me to push my heart rate to, like, say, the VO2 max.
Have you ever monitored it?
Yeah.
Like, to see what it gets up to? Or?
Yeah, I have. While I was, like, I was trying to push myself, and it got to the point where I'm like, my arms are going numb and shit, and my heart rate just would not go above, like, 110, 120.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm like, that's weird.
Dude,
but my resting heart rate's like 55.
You have a limiter
it almost feels that way. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this for like something to compare it to. I remember back in the day, I had monitored my heart we were doing tire flips.
Yeah.
And my heart would get up to like 170.
Yeah.
Blast.
Right.
Like blast 170, 180. Comes right back down, but you're talking about crazy amount of stress involved on the body and the whole cardiovascular system. So
And this new cardiologist I got, kind of a pencil neck guy, and I basically got to the point in the conversation where I said, look, doc, your job's to keep me alive, my job's to live.
They're probably going to advise against anything.
We don't like the heavy lifting.
Right.
Of course not. They never do, yeah.
And part of it, like I understand his logic. Basically, the heavy lifting, when you pressurize that much and your blood pressure spikes as high as it does.
Right.
Specifically, because I have 2 fake valves, and one of them specifically gets hypertrophied a lot worse than the other one does. Allegedly, this is the way he explained it. I'm kind of like, I feel like, isn't just using the heart in any way going to do that to it? But
yeah, it is.
I kind of felt that way,
most
right?
athletes have an enlarged heart.
That's what I said, you know? And so I was kind of like, I'm not saying you're bullshitting me or you don't know what you're talking about, but I also usually don't take health advice from dudes that can't even deadlift twice their own body weight, so.
Right, which is most of that field.
Well,
so.
yeah. Out then.
100%.
Don't take advice from John on anything.
So I mean, I should probably listen to him, but we had that conversation, and I actually told a few athletes at Manatee because they had asked me, and I've known them for a while. They're like, oh, when are you competing again? When are we going to see you outside of the Hawaiian in a comp shirt again? And I said, well, look, here's the thing. Last checkup, and I finally did get another update from them. The best way I can explain it is like on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being you just had your heart repaired and it's as good / normal as you can be as a heart patient. 5 being you're probably dead. I'm at like a 2 right now. 2 means...
Now, you have to have another surgery?
At some point, yeah. 10 to 12 years is how long they last.
From when?
I don't know.
You're how many years into this?
I'm on like year 10 right now
from
my last one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm kind of due.
It's on the horizon.
And he basically said like, because of your lifestyle, you're pushing it. He's like, you might be able to get 12, but the way you push it,
harder miles.
It's not the years, it's the miles, 100%, right?
For sure.
A lot of potholes.
I'm saying, dude, right? Yeah. And the suspension is shot. So,
basically I'm at a 2, and I already knew that when I left the office that day from the checkup.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's leaking more than it used to, which is normal. That's kind of what it do. Less efficiency out of it. And I was basically told, like, you probably won't feel anything just yet. It's not uncommon for you to not feel anything at like a 2. But when you get to a 3, you're going to start to feel it. And I know what to look for. Basically, I'm sleeping 12 hours a day.
Get tired. Right.
My feet are always cold, no matter what I do.
Really?
Circulation starts to drop.
Training starts to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
I start getting weaker instead of stronger or just staying the same.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what I do, train once a week and I'm still getting weaker.
Right.
You know what I mean? I didn't know what those things to look for because I pushed it so long when I was like 22, 23. I should have probably gotten surgery at 20.
Right.
But I was a fish in water, all of a sudden I realized, like, one day I was like, man, the only way I can describe it, and this isn't the proper term, but it's basically like a heart flutter.
Mm-hmm.
I would get these weird heart flutters, and the only way I can describe it was like my left lung didn't inflate, no matter what I did. Well, little did I know until I was in the hospital, and I saw I'd basically been walking around, my O2 stat was like 88.
Wow.
At all the time.
That's low, dude.
Way low.
But I had no idea.
Should be about 98, 99.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that now.
Right.
And then I remember they did the surgery in that one, and they went through the femoral, which is basically right through the groin, and they essentially go in there, inflate a balloon, drop a new ring in, and then take the balloon out. And I remember when I got out of that surgery, I
felt like $1 million, dude.
I was at work the next day.
Yeah.
Like,
really?
I was back to work the next day.
Wow.
My O2 stats never dropped below 99.
Yeah.
And I felt amazing.
Sure.
Like,
yeah. You're getting oxygen.
Everything was better. My mood was better. I mean, and of course they don't let you walk around too much. And I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I haven't been able to like walk.
I'm ready to go. Yeah.
Without being winded.
Right.
In like 2 years, dude.
Yeah.
But again, it was that I was a frog in the pot. I didn't realize I was getting boiled. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
So right now we're at a 2, and I just got another message from them. They did a blood test that basically it's like essentially a heart efficiency blood test sort of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically said, yeah, this is not uncommon for people in your position. It's like on the range, if you were a normal person, it'd be like, you're probably fucked.
Mm-hmm.
But because you're you, they're like, we're just going to use this as your new baseline moving forward. Let us know if things go bad, yada, yada. That's all we can do. So I'm expecting to have probably another procedure surgery within the next year or so. Because that was also, I was like, what kind of timeline are we looking at, Doc? And he's like, well, you might start feeling it tomorrow. You might start feeling it a year from now. It's really hard to tell.
You'll know.
I'll know. They won't, though,
so,
right?
Based off of that, like, when you have that done, will you think you'll go back into strongman after that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'll be involved in the sport, training and competing in some one way or another.
So it's something you've thought about, obviously.
Even if it kills me. Yeah. Now, when I first got this news, it kind of hit me a little hard, and I did bitch out for about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks probably, where I was just like, I have no motivation to train because I feel like I'm going to take maybe another 2 steps forward and then have to have the surgery and get knocked back,
drop back
5-6 steps.
Such is life, though. I mean,
and
that could be from any injury.
And that's what I said. That's kind of what changed my mind on it on my own. Nobody actually talked me out of it. I talked myself out of it, where I was like, yeah, dude, and you could pop a fucking bicep tomorrow doing a curl. You know what I mean? You don't know.
Done that. Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, why would you... I thought the whole point of you living your life the way you live it is because you're going to live your fucking life the way you want to live it.
Right.
And people always talk about, like, the next 10 years or this 10 years. And I'm like, yeah, most people don't have a literal timer in their chest every 10 years that goes off and says, hey, you
Time
think you
to reset.
You think you did all right those last 10 years? You
Right.
thinking about the next 10, bro?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I literally have a timer in my chest that around 10 to 12 years, it starts to kick me and go, hey, you're dying again. You know? Was it memento mori, bro? Like, you remember you will die. I have that timer in my chest. So, in terms of competition right now, I don't want to sign up for anything because I don't want to get into that competitive mindset and then
You had to reset.
start to feel it. And I'm too stupid to drop out. My dumb ass would probably go out there on the field and God knows what might happen then. It might actually kill me.
Right.
Which, yeah, I'd die for this shit, blah, blah, blah. But again, I'm only fucking 31. I'd like to at least see 40.
Yeah.
I think that'd be kind of cool.
You might want to live a little bit longer, dude.
Just a touch, I mean, that'd be nice.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, I mean, I'd be kind of like those back in high school, the one kid always died drunk driving and was a hero. I guess I'd be that guy. That'd be kind of cool.
The James Dean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Every high school had that.
Any more
But,
questions online?
there's a couple. He answered in his conversations like your favorite Will Development product. So I think your tacky is
my
probably,
my favorite.
Yeah.
Actually, my favorite is the Lucky Number 7 wipes.
Okay.
The tacky remover wipes.
Okay.
Those are my absolute favorite because that shit's a banger. And
That
people need to buy that.
was a task to remove tacky back in the day.
Oh my god!
And it
Baby
still
oil,
is.
WD-40, and you
Oh,
sit
dude,
there
the
and scrub
shit,
and scrub and
man.
scrub.
So I have a proprietary blend of solvents that are skin safe. It's already pre-soaked into a towel. I use this exact product at OSG every year, where there are 2 competitors coming off of that line, completely soaked in tacky, every 90 seconds.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And I can't have more
Yeah.
than 5 to 6 people standing back there at any given time.
right.
And I'm very proud to say this last year, Lori McDougall, who is a Canadian strongwoman competitor, she helps me out every year. That she doesn't make the finals, I should say. Run that station, and we knocked it out of the park this year. We never had more than 5 or 6 people standing there at any given time
So it's very quickly
removing
working.
tacky.
Are you going to
it
be a
has
part of
to.
OSG this year?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, as far as I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last time I heard,
So
Yeah.
what'd you say your website was?
willdevelopment.net.
What for all your products?
That is buffbutter.net.
Okay.
It's always .net because
But all
.coms
your
are
your proprietary products are
willdevelopment.net. Yeah,
Okay.
and you can always check out my Instagram. I have all the links to everything there as well.
What's your Instagram?
Will Development.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have a preference on promoting, competing, or representing at shows?
Competing.
Competing?
It's the easiest.
Good answer.
Yeah, it's the
Good
easiest.
answer.
Promoting
I
shit rolls uphill.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had some motherfucker trying to blame
Blame me for, or at least said my name in a way that made it sound like it was my fault that the All-American Games happened the way they happened.
It was your fault.
And I was kind of like, cool, fuck you. I literally told people not to do this show.
Yeah.
And if I had any kind of pull, I would have told this promoter, no, you can't put on that show.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So,
But our own athlete here, Scott Schofield, he asked me a question before he left today, and I think you kind of answered it already. But he asked basically, would you have a stone off with Tampa stones?
who?
Scott Schofield, one of our heavyweight competitors.
No, I mean, that other name you said.
Oh, yeah.
I've never heard of them.
Okay.
Do they come to shows?
I don't know.
Yeah. Do they actually do anything to contribute to the sport other than take money from people for shitty products?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've never seen them at a show, so I don't know who you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I literally don't know the people, so I don't know the way. I mean, I've heard of them,
You know
but
what? I better make sure I ask that question correctly.
Yeah.
Double check.
I want to make sure in the past.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
I
correct.
don't think I've ever seen that other. Yeah, I've never seen him at a show.
Okay.
Yeah, competing,
Fair enough.
volunteering.
So you would put your stone
Oh,
above and
oh,
beyond.
absolutely. Especially since I've been paid to repair 3 of his. Last time I checked, nobody was ever paid him to repair any of mine.
And
Yeah, we don't talk about Tampa painted stones.
again, from
Punk bitch. I've got receipts too if he wants to start more crying you bullshit. You say I'm the problem, then why did you go through my fucking
profile, find my wife who has a private account, and block her?
Wow.
Yeah, but I'm the petty one who started shit. Fuck you, bro.
Remind me not to let that Scott ask any more questions.
Yeah. No more.
Fuck
questions
you,
from
bro.
Scott Schofield.
Fucking 5 years in,
Look
and
what you did.
5 years in, and you
Really?
still make shit fucking stones.
We
Well,
were
guess
going-
what, bitch? I'm retired now, so everybody will finally get to fucking see how shitty your work actually
We were
is.
about
going.
it.
We were going so nice here.
Sorry. Okay, let me get back to Sean Finley's question.
Yeah.
So his last question here is there such a thing as competing too much, asking for a friend?
Yes, Sean,
Wow.
the 23rd show of the year, Fenway.
Well, yeah, this year. That's
I
funny.
think that goes to the idea of you don't know you've gone too far until you go too far.
Right.
What is competing too much, right? Well, if you end up getting injured every third show, you're probably competing too much.
Sure.
But if you're like you and you somehow manage to go compete almost every weekend
He does too.
and
man.
avoid, not only do you avoid injuries, but you are actually actively getting better and stronger
Yeah.
as the time goes on.
To each their own
Bro, you know what I mean? You're just built different.
is definitely not for me. I can tell you
Some
that.
people are like that, man. Some people can go compete and just continually just get through. Yeah, in a sense, your competing is almost your training
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
how much you're competing.
Even for me, man, like 3 comps a year was like that was about all I wanted, and then I was ready for a break. Like, just taxing on the body, taxing mentally. And to each their own. Like
Well,
people like Harry Walker's another one that competes.
He's built different.
An absolute monster.
I don't know why Harry likes me either, but I'm glad he does.
Maybe the follow-up question should be, how sustainable is that over the years?
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Again,
Well, that, exactly. I mean, you can't say the answer right now. I'm
You
just
don't know
saying
how far you've gone.
That's something he has to ask
Right.
himself. Is this
Yeah.
sustainable for
How far is too
How old
far?
is Sean? Does anybody
Sean,
know?
he's a Masters
think it's
competitor, so he's
40.
at least
so he's
40.
40 plus,
I think
okay.
he's 42.
Okay.
Yeah,
could be
early,
wrong.
somewhere early 40s. Yeah, something like that.
Now, do we know how long he's been competing?
Oh my God, 2 years, 3 years maybe.
Okay.
I think 2.
I think maybe about 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, he bit the
So-
bug and just immediately dove head
Like
first.
late
Yeah.
30s?
yeah.
When
When
he
he got
started-
into
late
it,
When
yeah.
he first started, he was not a Masters. That is correct.
Yeah,
Okay,
late
so-
30s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the reason I ask, I didn't know if this has been a lifelong thing where he's been competing since
Now he's and he's
a
been
decade or two, or
I'm not sure of his competitive background, but he's been involved in strength training of some sort, one way or another, his whole life.
okay,
So he has been, like I said, strength training.
powerlifting or anything like that, or
I'm not
Olympic lifting, or-
100% sure. I don't believe Olympic
Okay.
lifting, but I believe he's.
Maybe did some powerlifting.
Okay,
Maybe,
I don't know,
And
you
I
know.
don't even know if he actually competed in powerlifting. I don't want to say yes or no one way or the
Yeah.
other, but I know for a fact he has done some sort of strength training.
That would just be interesting
whole
to know.
life.
Maybe we'll have him on sometime and
Oh, he would be a
Get
hoot
into
and
it.
a holler.
yeah.
He would be. He's one of the nicest
He
guys. too.
always sends in questions for everybody
Yeah.
on the podcast. So,
Super
I mean,
active in the community,
Yes.
and not only is he active in the community, but he's a positive force
right.
in the community.
Yeah, very nice guy.
He
for
doesn't
sure.
he doesn't take anything from the sport. He constantly wants to give back as
Yeah,
best
that's
as
good.
he can, which is just like
Maybe he'll be a good promoter someday.
it's a beautiful thing, man. I will try to dissuade him from ever promoting if I can because I don't want it to break him like that.
Yeah.
True.
But that's what I mean. Like shit rolls uphill.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything, right? If you're a promoter, and to an extent it should. If you're the promoter, if I'm a promoter, which I am, and let's say I put you in charge of something, and let's say you end up dropping the ball. Yeah, immediately people are going to blame you. But I have to blame myself because I'm the one who put you in charge.
Right.
That's how it needs to work. That's how hierarchies work.
Right.
And that's a proper thing. I think it just, and that's why when you said, compete, promote, be a state rep, and it's like, well, even though state reps don't necessarily have that kind of power
Right.
to say like, no, you can't promote, we're going to get blamed for shitty shows.
Oh, for sure.
Would you
So-
say you're more like an ambassador?
I would say that I am, and I try to be. I've always tried to be. Actually, that's another kind of lesson I learned from Lynn. I tend to, when I compete,
Compete, I like to chew on a little cigarillo while I'm competing the whole time.
Yeah.
Just have like a constant nicotine hit. I don't like those Zins and I don't like dip or chew. So I just chew on a cigar basically the whole time. And on occasion I will smoke too, like a cigarette just to calm the nerves and stuff like that. Just get some nothing hits like a cigarette in terms of nicotine. And Lynn actually kind of put it in my head one time like, hey, maybe don't do that in front of the kids.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, oh shit. Like, yeah, I'm not a pro athlete, but they don't know that. They
Right,
just see
right.
some asshole lifting, and God forbid I might accidentally inspire one of these kids. I don't want them to think like every athlete smokes. That's what you do. Like,
Right.
no, like I'm making a choice.
on my own body to
Right.
do this to myself, but I don't want to influence a child.
They don't need to see it. Right.
And that's my biggest thing too. Protecting children's innocence is a big deal for me. Like, I don't even like to swear in front of kids because, like, even that's a part of innocence being taken from them because you never get that back once it's gone. So it's like, I would never want to take any of their innocence by accidentally showing them like smoking in school, which it is. But I don't want to be the one to show them that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or influence a child to pick up smoking. Influence them to pick up strong.
And hell yeah, but smoking, no.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions, actually. Somebody asked, what goals do you still have in strongman? Could be as a competitor, promoter, etc. I still do have a lifelong goal of getting to top 10 of OSG, whether that is as a lightweight or a lightweight masters.
True.
One of those.
None of that is easy.
No,
At all.
but I do believe if I kicked my ass hard enough, I think I could get to top 10. I hope. We'll see. It's, we're getting there. Let's see. What are the most important elements of a good strongman show? Actually, I want you to answer that question. I want to hear your answer to that.
Important elements.
The most important
The most
elements
important
of a good strongman show.
I would say efficiency is definitely up there. As an athlete, I don't want to sit out there for 12 hours, and I've done that.
Goddamn right.
I think we all have. Efficiency is huge. Good. I mean, I could answer this all day. Good judges, very important. Judges that are fair and that are that are not afraid to give you a no call. You know what I mean? Like a no doubt. Yeah, you have to have people that, and it's nothing personal.
No.
Like if I give you a no, it's just it is what it is. Don't get mad at me.
Right.
Like I said, I've been judged by my friends before. I remember John Adams gave me a slide penalty that 1 year.
Right, I remember, yeah.
But it was legit, and I was,
Right.
and he's like, "Bro," I said, "No, man, absolutely."
Rules are rules.
And I respect that. You know what I mean? I want people to judge me fair as well.
Hold me to the highest standard.
Well, and other
Sure.
people will see that and see this guy judged his friend. And,
Yeah, there's-
and,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Held him to a
Held
standard.
him to a standard that
Absolutely.
everyone else
Yeah,
was
nobody's
held to,
getting
so.
anything for free. So efficiency would be is
Right.
definitely huge. But let me speak on that too, though. Efficiency, but not at the expense of the athlete.
Quality.
So
Right.
because a lot of times
No rushing.
promoters are trying to just rush through to get done, and it kills the athlete as well. So a good timed, and that takes years to do.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, to where hey, these guys have had enough time. For myself, and if anybody's been to nationals or any kind of higher end comp, you know that a lot of times your warm ups are very limited.
Yeah.
So, and that's sometimes it's just the amount of people.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So I would say as an athlete, you have to kind of train that way too. And kind of going off subject here, but
I think as you get closer to the show, you should start training
limit your
with
warm-ups,
limited warm-ups
right.
because understand you're not going to be able to do
Sure.
65, 75, 80,
And people try to
85.
do that.
And it's like, it's not going to happen.
It's not gonna happen,
You
dude.
might get 65 and then 90% of the comp weight.
It's
But-
not like a powerlifting contest where you have a separate warm-up room and you can
Right.
kind of take your time. You have
Right.
to go
But-
up on the...
Right,
yeah, go
right.
ahead.
Well, I was going to say I've always liked, having a decent amount of time, and even as a promoter, that comes back to what you say, like, if you're an athlete, what you need to do as a promoter.
Right, right, right.
So if you've been to a lot of high level shit, you know what you want to see, and you can
Exactly.
try to make that change. So, I like to have a little bit of warm up time,
Yeah.
not rushed in between events, but definitely the efficiency to where the timing has to be right. But
Right.
that would be my vague answer, I guess.
I would say my vague answer to what are the most important elements of a good strongman show, an athlete-focused experience.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the mantra of my shows are always tie goes to the athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, why are we doing this? To make sure the athlete has a good experience.
Yeah, you don't have anything without athletes. If
That's just it, right?
you
Like,
piss enough people off, you're not going to have to worry about being
and
a
so it's like,
promoter.
what am I trying to do? I don't care how I end up looking at the end of the day. You can gas me up all you want. That's great. Yeah, it feels good. Of course, it feels good when people say I ran a good show. That's great. But I'm nothing without my volunteers. And then I'm nothing without the athletes.
Sure.
You guys are my customers. You're paying for a good experience. I'm going to die giving you that
That's
experience.
fair enough. I mean,
That's how I feel about it when
Yeah.
you're paying me for a service.
Yeah.
yeah, and nothing, now with the way the economy is now, it's not just the sign up that I spend. The hotels are expensive, travel's expensive, food's expensive. So now you're not talking about it's $100 comp. No, that's probably a $400 or $500 day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you throw hotels in there, for sure.
and at
You
the
know what I
very
mean?
least, they deserve
That's a big investment for a lot of people.
they deserve a quality experience. At the very least, if all I can guarantee you is that you will have a quality, you're gonna be catered to.
Right.
Like, if I can guarantee you that, that's what I'm going to guarantee you. That's what I'm selling
Yeah,
you.
sure.
And a unique experience, at least at my show anyway. Ooh, that's a good one. In your experience, what are some key differences between USS and Strongman Corp?
Okay, good
Here we
question.
go.
Good
So
question.
there's a lot of differences between the two feds, especially in the state of Florida. And I would say the biggest one you're going to notice, and I'm going to put it tactfully, USS tends to be more, and it's always been this way since I've been involved, tends to be more, I'll use the word approachable, from the aspect of a newer athlete.
The consumer model.
Right. And I will say that Strongman Corp has a tendency to be a little less approachable in terms of a newer athlete.
And that's probably fair on a lot of. I can agree with some of that. I mean, there again, there's like a new thing on the horizon because Dion sold Strongman Corp. So
James Deffenbaugh owns it.
Deffenbaugh's gonna, and now we're gonna see which way it goes. You know what I mean? And change sometimes really good. Sometimes time will tell.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
and I know James is really trying to push the envelope on stuff.
Right.
But yeah, I would agree with you on that. I mean, I think Strongman Corp primarily in the past has been for, I don't want to say more serious people, but I'm going to say more serious people.
Well, I would put
I agree.
it, I would
I'm
put
not
it-
trying to sound like an asshole.
No.
I would put it this way, right? At the top level of the sport, more than one person has said the Arnold Strongman Classic is where you go to be a strongman.
Mm-hmm.
World's Strongest Man is where you go to be a movie star.
Mm-hmm.
Because World's Strongest Man is a TV show.
Absolutely.
It's not. It's a TV.
production.
It's a TV show about a strongman
for
competition.
sure.
And it very, very much so hinders the actual competition. Whereas the Arnold Strongman Classic, the shit's usually heavier.
Very more statically driven.
It
for
tends
sure.
to even the moving events are shorter,
So even when you look back,
except
at,
for say like when they did the
Like-
Husafel carry, but you know
like
what I
if
mean.
you look at past champions of, not taking anything, but obviously any guy on that level is ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's insane. But if you look at like when Pujanowski was killing World's Strongest Man, he couldn't do shit at the Arnold because
No,
he didn't have that
no.
kind of static strength compared to like Big Z or these guys like that.
And even then, like only guy to ever get 5, but
Yep,
you could
yep.
make the argument that a lot of the perhaps better athletes or people that could have actually challenged him
Mm-hmm.
were over in IFSA at the time. You had Poundstone who was over there, and you had Big Z were over there, just to name 2 big heavy hitters of the time.
Well, and Poundstone, I mean, competed in World's Strongest Man,
Right.
but he was more statically driven.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
It's hard to play those what if games because it's
Sure.
like, and I've done it to myself too. Anytime I've done, say, good.
But I go, you know what? I beat the rubber syrup on the day. And that's the way you got to look at it when you do win, even when you beat really good people. You can't be a cock in front and be like, I'm the best. It's like, no, I just happen to be better today.
Well, I'll tell you,
That's usually what it comes down to.
when you look at those comps, like that the top end stuff, the Arnold, Rogue, all this, usually the same guys, if they're straight dominant like Big Z, he's won all that shit. You know what I mean? He won everything. Mitchell's doing the same thing right now. He's a rounded dude.
I've spent a lot of years trying to figure out a way to make this phrase sound, I would say, less shitty. But
Mhm.
I've always kind of said any asshole could win one World's Strongest Man.
Mhm.
And by that, I just mean, like, if you end up there and you're in the top 10, anybody in that top 10 could win that year.
Sure.
It could happen. I truly believe that. To win 2 times, that
Yeah.
says something.
Multiple times.
To win 3 times, that says something. To win 4 times,
Yeah.
that fucking says something.
Oh
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
that's domination at that point. I mean,
So
that's
even if
all
they're not
round.
consecutive, like you came back and you showed that even though we had possibly a new crop of athletes, we're still here. I mean, you look at somebody like Brian Shaw, who had one of the longest running careers at the top level, was still managing to get into the finals, even on his last year.
Oh yeah.
Like, as what, a 44-year-old or something like that?
Well, that's why when people argue who the best is, I would say Big Z and overall rounded is the best to ever do.
Well, and you couple that with the fact that, like, that's kind of what tickles me pink about, like, Eddie Hall fans, because they don't want to, like, give credit where it's due. Big Z's record for the log press technically only stood for a couple of years because the only motherfucker that could beat it was him every year.
Right.
For 15 years, he was the only one who pushed the envelope on that log press.
I've been going to the Arnold since 06, and I've competed in the Arnold multiple times. And I remember watching him be the only one by far that could press the Australian oak, and everybody else had to drop down too, because that was like the trump. And everybody would have to back down to do. I mean, he was so dominant, but crazy shit.
And that's the thing. He wasn't just a one-trick opponent. He just happened to be
He was a bad.
that much better on log than everybody else did.
Yeah, sure.
It was like, no, his deadlift wasn't that bad.
No, yeah, he was just rounded.
Yeah.
And very statically
And
strong.
But
He
then
just-
you happen to have that ace card when it came to the log. So yeah, I'd say those are the key differences between USS and Strong. There's like obvious shit like price of what do you call it?
Cards.
Membership.
Yeah,
and
membership
stuff like
cards
that.
and stuff for sure.
And then as a promoter, there's differences too. In terms of, I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain, things like event insurance and stuff like that. They're handled differently between the two federations, which I won't divulge one way or another how that works, because if you want to do promotion, you should just do your own research. I don't
Well,
want to sway anybody.
I definitely, and I'm not behind the scenes on this, but it seems like Strongman Court limits comps way more than USS does.
Well, I would say in the state of Florida, absolutely.
For sure.
But I also don't know,
I can't speak for other states, so I don't know.
right, I also don't know what kind of authority
Like a chair has.
a chair has for Strongman Court. What I can tell you in USS is we are a volunteer position that was here to assist
Well, I asked Steve.
as best as we can. Right.
Yeah.
And I think his answer was great. Like, that's it. Like, we don't,
Yeah.
Sometimes it seems like people think like we have
like you're pulling
Power.
Yeah.
power.
Yeah,
Honestly.
you
It's
have the say on.
Sure.
When-
And honestly, I thought that was probably the case too.
and it's just simply not the case. I mean,
Mhm.
now listen, I think if obviously Steve and I are the two reps for Florida, I think we both came together and went to the actual powers that be and said, look, this person should not put on the show. Period.
Yeah.
And that probably should happen at some point.
I do believe that we would be listened to.
Yeah.
And you know, and I've got things about limiting promoters too, telling somebody no, because it's like, how do you say you can't put on a show? You know what I mean? Like, you have to do X, Y, and Z before you can put on a show. I say, I think you should do this thing before you put on a show, but it's really hard for me to make a hard, fast rule about what you should and should not, because you never know, somebody will come in and throw an absolute fucking banger. You know what I mean?
This is true, but I think like from a representative, I think
Hedging our bets is probably the better idea.
well, what I think should happen that you guys go to these comps and when you see shit like a promoter shit in the bed, well, you should have the authority to go to this guy and like, listen, if you can't do this, this, and this, like a checklist,
Yeah.
don't try this again next year until you fix these things.
I thought about that too, like maybe having a promoter checklist of like, hey, what is your plan for doing this X, Y, or Z? You know, but it's really, it's really hard to do that kind of stuff because it's like there's no book. You could write a whole book on how to run a show, and guess what? Something's going to pop up you didn't think of.
Right.
It always does.
But I think you can have a set of guidelines that they need to follow.
I think so too.
You know.
Yeah. And it's like how, but then the question is, you know, you can have laws are only good as their enforcement.
Right.
How do you enforce that? You know, it's
They don't promote anymore if
well,
they.
But that's what I mean. But the damage is already done there.
Yeah, but it's going to be done. It's going to be done either way. But at least you cut it off at
It's true.
the source. You know what I mean?
And I guess right now the method is we'll let the market sort it out. Where it's like, oh, that was a shit show.
Nobody's going to sign up next year.
Most people probably won't sign that.
Right.
But I've often found that people tend to be a lot more forgiving for some reason online.
I would agree. Or as big as, the sport's gotten a lot bigger to where the next year it's just a new crop of people for the most part that doesn't know again.
People pop
Right. Or they don't do the research and find out.
You definitely see that because when I go to a lot of these comps now, used to, man, I would know everybody there. You would know who the heavy hitters are. Now I don't even know who half these people are.
I remember my first Miami's, my first strongman show in novice. I think there was like 15 or 20 of us in novice. And the only person from that novice show, other than me, that is still
Even kind of involved in the sport is Esteban Cruz.
Yes.
He is the only other guy from that class
Yeah.
that is still involved in the sport.
Yeah.
Everybody else, they're just gone.
Yeah.
It's a high cycle rate.
Or they went to another sport.
Who knows?
Or
dude?
activity.
People just come and go. Now, and again, that was just the novice show. Who knows
Right.
what? Maybe the other people
Right.
stuck around. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's just one example of like how quick people come and go from this sport.
Huge cycle for sure.
It's but I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. Oh, that's a good question. I'll let you read the last one before I read it.
What does the next 5 years in Florida strongman look like?
Who knows?
That's a good opening question. Well, and I've said it, and I'll stick by it. I think within the next 5 years, we will find that balance point of quality and quantity. And I honestly believe it's going to be somewhere around 15, maybe 20 shows. That's even a little bit high.
Yeah, that's a lot for sure.
But I think we're going to have like 15 shows.
And I think it's going to be a good balance between heavy and athleticism, approachable, and maybe, hell, we'll use a term of endearment, elitist. You know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't have to be a dirty word. We can make elitist sexy.
Well, it almost comes down to where I don't know if somebody takes on the role and is like, hey, I'm going to be the entry level into this. This is what my comp is, which I know some guys have tried to do, and even that's hard because then you're constantly cycling through people. If it's but it's almost like maybe that is an answer. I don't know. Where this guy is known for this guy's a good entry level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is.
When
but
we had a show like that, Tanya Jimenez had put on a show 2 years in a row, Misfits.
I went to last year that she did it. Yeah.
Well, the first year was just for women, and then the second
right.
year was basically all novice. So there was men, and she had so many competitors, and I completely understand why she made the decision to not run the show anymore because number one, running shows is very, very stressful, and two, I mean that's a lot
of people. She got a lot of people sign up for the very first show, and that was a great thing. And I'm proud to say that there are several people from that show that were novices that did stick with the sport. A guy named Brandon Cons, for instance, he trains out of our gym out there in Longwood, and he's doing my show this year. Yeah, so it's like we got at least one from it, but I remember seeing several names from that show,
right,
where they stuck with it. So I mean, there's room, and I do truly believe that the market will just sort itself out. And like you said, I mean, unfortunately, there does come a point where it's like sometimes we just got to let the competitors just eat some shit.
Predator and prey.
Honestly, like you fell for the All-American Strongman dreams. If that flashy marketing wasn't your first clue, that maybe you should kind of take a step back.
Well, there was quite a few of those in the last couple of years that were promised a whole bunch and did nothing.
Fell through.
Yeah.
It happens, and it's like, it's buyer beware, guys. Like, just because it's a small community doesn't mean it doesn't have its snakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a lot of years to come to that realization. Sure. And it's, I've been in here for a long time, and it's one of those things where it's just like, at some point, you got to take responsibility for your own damn wallet, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't be here to save you.
Yeah. It's
also not my job as a rep to fucking run somebody else's show.
No, I agree. I mean, especially if they're not reaching out, asking the right questions, and that's what kind of pisses me off about some of the promotion is, if you're making these mistakes, like, are you doing anything to fix it? You can't not know what's
wrong in this. You know what I mean? If you did a comp and you had a lot of equipment failures, or you didn't have this and that, okay, nobody's perfect, but you better learn from this in the next comp. If that's not fixed, you're obviously, we've already talked about this, you're in it for the wrong reason, in my opinion.
You're going to start going downhill, too.
Yeah, if you don't evolve it for a better experience, like you're saying, then I don't know where your mind is and why you're really doing this.
What I mean? And it's, like I said, that was one of the best pieces of advice I got from Lynn was like, have a good reason. He's like, because if your reason is just to do a show, that's a fine reason, but it probably won't last you more than 2 years, because eventually it's going to be like, why are you doing a show if it's just another show?
Yeah, and I think Lynn definitely is a guy that's, had to endure a lot of stuff,
Shit rolls uphill.
I've talked to Lynn, and like I said, great guy, great promoter. I mean, but he's just got to figure out a way to market it to get a lot more asses in the seats,
and that's the hard part.
It's not going to make it.
That's that. I mean, you want to talk some brass fucking tacks, man? Like, here's some shit a lot of people don't want to fucking hear about this sport. Nobody gives a fuck about lightweights.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
I'm sorry.
We've talked about
fucking
that.
Fight me. Oh, you think they do? Oh, really? Really? What was your fucking viewership at your last fucking U80 show? Mm-hmm. Yeah, sit the fuck down.
Well,
Numbers don't lie.
Clash ran into that.
You know what I mean? And I think their heart was in the right place. They were trying to make big platforms, but
and that's the problem.
In America, that's just not there.
That's the fucking problem when you say that statement that I just said. I know for a goddamn fact I'm going to get a bunch of goddamn DMs from a bunch of little fucking butthurt people about how I'm an asshole, how dare I not support it, blah, blah, blah. I didn't say I don't believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
I just told you the fucking reality is that nobody fucking cares. The reality is less than 1% of this whole fucking country even gives a damn about World's Strongest Man.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then
I'm sorry.
You go, like...
You think they're going to want to look at a guy who looks like he kind of works out?
Yeah, they want to see...
more than the average
you go
person?
to see the freaks. I mean, that's just the way it is, and we've talked about that. Sure.
They care about the freaks. Yeah. Nobody wants to see me lifting, 3 times my body weight. They don't give a shit. The average person
doesn't
understand over 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Once you get over 200 pounds, they don't even get it.
A lot of people don't understand it, and it's, how marketable is it?
I don't know.
And then you want to really, really get fucking butthurt? This will make you butthurt. Most athletes in this sport have no fucking personality. Mm-hmm. There is nothing I can market because you're fucking boring.
There's a lot of that, yeah.
You have nothing to talk about. And I know because I've talked to a lot of them. And the ones that I do know are the ones that actually have a personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's hard to find the marketability, I guess you would say. And there's problems in the sport, and that's a whole different, subject.
Podcast.
The average person just does not care. It's just that simple.
It's
you
true.
look at the most popular sport in the world, as much as it pains me to say, soccer.
Soccer, yeah.
They barely get one. I think it was. I looked it up one time because I was just like, "There's no fucking way." It was something like it's barely 10% of the world's population. Mm-hmm. Not even at one point watches the World Cup.
Well,
and that is the most popular sport in the world.
Yeah, but it's that's accessible to anybody. You know what I mean? That's to get into that. All you need is a ball, dude.
Right. But I'm just saying, just to watch it. It's like, guys, you think about, and I've said this for years. I'm like, strongman, period. Any sort of interest in it, I guarantee you, the number is a lot smaller than you think it is.
Oh, absolutely.
If it's 400,000 people all across the planet,
As a whole,
I would be surprised.
It's got to be very small.
I would even say I'll give you 500,000 people on this planet. Give even kind of a slight fuck about strongman at any level. They might only know like Hafthor Bjornsson's name, and they know he does strongman.
Right.
Well, if you take both nationals, Strongman Corp and USS, you may have 800 people combined.
Right.
In the whole nation that's going to a national high-level event. So there's, 336 million plus people in the U.S.?
Right.
I mean...
That's literally an incalculable percentage.
You're a grain of salt in the ocean.
Yeah, I think that's being generous.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. Like when you see somebody like Lynn, who's I think his heart and mind is in the right place.
Yeah.
But how do you market this to get a lot of people to watch it? And nothing's cheap. You know what I mean?
Right.
These are not $10 tickets we're talking about.
And I want to make it clear too. I'm not saying this to be like doom, woe is me. We shouldn't even try. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need to look at the reality of the situation, which is we do not have that big of a market.
No.
We need to figure out how to expand that market. And honestly, I think having more accessible comps is a good way to expand that market. I mean, look at CrossFit.
Sure.
It's very accessible.
Well, you look at Steve's comp we just went to.
Right.
99% of the people there were CrossFitters.
Yeah. Right.
And it's just the way it was. You know what I mean? They started at 7 in the morning. I didn't leave until 7:30 at night, and CrossFit was still rolling.
Right.
Wow.
12 straight hours plus, and they're still, and I mean, they never stopped.
And the question is, how did they manage to crack the code that Strongman hasn't when Strongman's been around for how much longer?
It's
way longer than...
Way longer.
Well,
as a competitive...
It's more accessible. Marketing was very smart on their part. And it's scalable at a very minute. They can just fractions. They can have so many different divisions because it's so scalable.
Right.
And strongman, how much can you scale it down before it's not strongman anymore?
Right.
There lies the problem.
That's the challenge. And like, look, I'm a fucking lightweight man competitor. I would love it if one of the fucking divisions would give us a pro card. That'd be nice to at least pretend they give a shit.
Well, they
about
are
us.
now. They're starting to get in there now. And people are like, even Strongman Corp now is U90s and strong pro cards and stuff like that.
Not for the U80s. Anyway,
it'll come.
But even they are admitting.
Oh, it's slow.
There's
to get
no
here.
point to have it. And I mean, a pro card's
it's good on a resume.
It's kind of a fucking joke anyway.
It's good on a resume.
Because what is a professional? A professional is somebody that gets paid exclusively to do that job.
But if you're in the industry like I am, it does look good on a resume or whatever.
And the guys that are in it know the kind of work that goes into actually getting a pro card. And there's nothing right. There's not like I respect anybody that earns a pro card because it's fucking tough.
Very
but
hard.
then you look at somebody like Evan Singleton. Technically, he's not a pro, according to the feds, because he never got a pro card.
And there's been multiple guys like that.
Yet he gets paid exclusively to be a strongman.
Yeah,
odd.
That just shows you that there's ways around it. You know what I mean?
So it's one of those things where it's just like we are so fractured, but there's nothing inherently wrong with that either. I think we need a lot of ideas and a lot of options, but yeah, it's like don't take me pointing out these objective facts as like woe is me or we shouldn't even try. Like no. It's just, I don't think the right way is to split all the classes into single classes and say, okay, but we've got the absolute best of the U80 men and the absolute best of the 73 kilo women, and we're going to just do a show exclusively for them. And it's
not marketable.
Nobody's going to watch that except for us.
And it's been tried.
We were going to watch it anyway.
It's been tried and tested, and
we've seen it.
You've got to block it with something else. You've got to stack it with something else.
It's unfortunate, but that's how it goes. I think one of the few shows that has a chance to make something along those lines work is OSG or the Arnolds, where you have a bunch of the classes going all at once. The challenge, I think, with marketing OSG is the fact that there's so many classes. I think if you only tried to market day 3, where it's only the top 10 of all the classes, I think you'd have a better chance.
Well, if you look at the success of the Arnold, it's a huge expo.
Absolutely.
It's one of the biggest fitness expos in the world.
Right.
So when you see all those asses in the seat, they didn't pay $100 to see Strongman. They paid $25 to see everything.
Right. So it's a little bit more accessible. And now they are charging to get to the bleachers and this and that, which maybe kind of late to the game, but they're trying to push that through. But you get a lot of kickback on that too from guys that's been in it forever. Like, man, I used to watch that shit for free, so now you got people kicking back. It's a transition, and it's going to be growing pains for sure.
Definitely.
But I think if you took like OSG and you put it with something like that, like a big fitness thing, would it do better on the last day? Hell yes, it would.
Yeah.
Because
never that chance.
Because it, maybe it's made big with CrossFit. Look at the road games. The road games are huge because why? CrossFit. That's what made it. That's why they can. That money they're paying athletes ain't from strongman equipment. It is from CrossFit and general equipment like we have here.
Oh, sure, yeah.
General gym equipment. Sure.
Buzz.
I don't know where it is.
So, what's your last question? You said you want to read it. Let's read it.
We can edit it out so you can.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
hammer it away.
So, why does Florida's Strongest Man have 1/3 the competitors as it used to?
Fair question.
Yeah.
And
you think it's a fair question? We'll leave it on it.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that is we've been talking about it. Watered down competitions. One of the biggest things that Florida's has done, and I've talked to Alan about this, is there's no novice. And if you look at most successful comps, half the field is novice.
Yeah.
So weird.
It is weird.
We'll start
So
tickling the chords.
I think that's the biggest answer to that is no novice is taken away from it, and he had to shift the comp to a later time because Florida's is by all rights is a very heavy comp, always has been, and I think it always should be. It's for a state title, so it should not be a watered down comp.
No.
And the other thing to it, and it's not an excuse, but OSG's right there now.
Right.
So high-level guys, Rich Stout, all these guys that maybe and used to do Florida's,
Right.
they can't. You're not doing those comps that heavy,
No.
a 3-day comp, and then I'm going to jump right into Florida's. No, you're not.
No.
So that's some of the answer. And Nationals is right there. You have Masters Nationals. You have Open. So
you reminded me. I wanted to give a shout out to DJ from Strongman Institute because shows being close together. Right when I had to change my date, I just picked July 19th just to pick it. I was planning on announcing that change on let's just say Friday. Thursday they announced their show was happening on July 19th.
that's right. So you had to move.
No. So I called him.
Okay.
And I said, listen, I would change the date again, except I have a guy coming from out of state who's already signed up for the show, and I can't tell him I'm changing the date.
And that's a Strongman Corp, and you're a USS Comp.
I'm a USS Comp, and he's Strongman Corp. But I've known DJ. I helped him run his first show, which was the Static Monsters. And so I just called him, and I said, dude, I swear to God, I was like, I can't change the date again.
Right.
I said, now I feel like we attract different competitors, so we probably should be okay. I was like, but I just don't want you to think I'm stepping on your toes like that, dude. Like,
sure.
I can show you the emails I sent to people on Tuesday,
Right.
where I was changing this date to the 19th. I just had no idea you were even
Doing a show, and I had no idea you were playing it.
Right.
And I got to give him credit. And there again, it's like there's no reason to
can't get along and at least be cordial with each other. Because he said, you know what, let me check, dude. We might actually be able to change the date. And he said, I appreciate you calling and saying something because we probably would have thought you were trying to be petty if you hadn't said anything. And I'm like, no. And look, I don't have to be your number one supporter, but I don't want to be your enemy either.
Right.
Just because because again, I can't guess somebody's intentions. But unless you've run a couple of shows, I have to assume your intentions are good. And I'm assuming he's running a show because he wants to help the sport in some way by even just offering a different show.
And we're going to have them on in a couple weeks.
May 10th.
May 10th they'll be on, and maybe they have an answer to why he's putting one on. He'll be on. So
well, and I truly believe that he has a great interest in the sport, and I think he wants to support it in any way that he can. And not for nothing, I know he feels certain type of way about how Static Monsters went down. I think he feels like he could have done better, which. That's the sign of a good promoter, is thinking you could have done better.
Yeah, you
want to improve.
You got to learn from it for sure.
And so I think he wants to put on an actual, or I should say a more diverse actual strongman show, not just like Strongman's version of powerlifting.
Right.
Although they did have 5 events that day, but still, you know what I mean.
But yeah, to his credit, man, he ended up changing the date of that show to June, which I believe made it like 2 or 3 weeks.
June 21st, yeah.
Right. So it was even further from my show
Right.
than it normally would have been. And I really appreciated him doing that and working with me. But it just goes to show, like, I mean, like you said, when Steve called Mike, that's USS and Strongman Corp bridging that gap. But it's like,
Right.
we don't have to be dicks about this, guys.
Communication.
Right.
Well, and that's why, you know, John and I have talked about this, like, anybody can come on here. This is a platform.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we don't have to get along. We don't even have to get along.
Right.
And maybe at the end of the day that we see more eye to eye. And I'll admit when I'm wrong. And, you know, I've said this before. And, you know, I've been wrong quite a bit in my life before.
Yeah.
And, you know, to the point now where it's not that big of a deal. If I think I know something and I don't, I'm like, well, fuck, man, I didn't know that.
And that's what it comes down to. I think as long as I think that's where some of the headbutting comes in, where it's like, okay, what is your goal, right? What is your goal? And it's like, if we both have similar goals, but we just disagree on how to get there, I don't see a reason why we can't just,
Well, listen.
at the very least, stay the fuck out of each other's way.
Listen, an interesting thing that maybe people don't know is that, so when I got into Strongman, there was one corporation,
Right, NAS, right?
North American Strongman, who was owned by who? Dion and Willie.
Mm-hmm.
They get divorced. Willie goes into he invents and
Right.
creates USS. So there was a line drawn in the sand from the get-go. You had people going, they were friends with Willie. So this is not something that Florida created or anybody created.
It also
it was created from the top.
It also
you know
doesn't
what I mean?
happen in other states. Up in New Hampshire, the USS state chair and the Strongman state chair, they run their respective state championships
Right.
out of the same gym.
Sure. Are you talking about like
Just in New Hampshire. I don't know their names.
that might be Bixler, because Bixler
Could be.
Bixler's up in Bixler's in
Pennsylvania.
PA, but
Pennsylvania.
he ran like 3 or 4 different states. He was a
Okay.
chair for like 4 states.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just shows you how much and great guys up there, and that just shows you how much he loved the sport.
Like
Because
there's no reason we can't get along just because we have different views on how to get to the same place.
yeah, I mean, my point is that this was kind of born into that,
Right.
and it really was. There was like a line drawn in the
Started out
sand,
as a lover spat, really.
Right.
and it was like it. I mean, I've been to comps where they were like, "Hey, man, fuck those guys. We're the heaviest sport." So
Right.
and guys like me that were NAS and Strongman Court forever, you almost bought into it some. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, how could you know? Who doesn't want to be a part of a community?
Well, and then I stayed with what I knew. So
Right.
I've been Strongman Corp for a very long time because that's what I knew. That was
Where we
that's
started.
that's what got me
It's home.
to the Arnold. That's what got the Arnold was the Super Bowl of anything. There was no OSG.
Right,
there
right.
was no Clash. There was none of this
No
shit.
chaos over in Europe.
None of
Yeah.
it, dude. So that's the only thing I knew. So, and some of that's probably going to work itself out, and it is over the years because hell, USS has been around a long time now.
Right.
You know what I mean? A lot longer.
I forget. Didn't they just celebrate like 15 years?
Yeah,
or
it's
something?
something.
Really? It's been.
Oh no, it can't be 15.
About 10 years.
10, I think. Yeah.
Which is crazy to me because it doesn't seem like that far. But
Yeah.
my point is, there again, this is not something that we made. Like we were kind of, I don't want to say forced into it, but it was
Right.
almost like, hey man, which way you going?
Right.
Yeah.
You going with
Pick a
USS or
side.
you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Pick a side.
Well,
bro.
nothing unites people like a common enemy.
Right.
Well, and a lot of that still exists,
Oh,
especially
absolutely.
because you got guys.
Prejudice, if I may.
Well, if you look at like somebody like Allen, his pro card is we went through Strongman Court. You
Of
know what I
course,
mean?
yeah.
So you tend to be more loyal to what built you. That's
Right.
what built.
Where you came from.
Absolutely.
Right,
so
right. And there's
that's some of the
definitely-
issues.
There's definitely something to be said of that. But then there's also like, I mean, at some point you got Hatfields and McCoys, man. I mean, what's
Sure.
the real lesson of the original American feuding families?
Yeah.
If everybody keeps shooting, everybody dies eventually.
Right. Eventually.
Eye
Yeah.
for an eye, everybody's blind.
And it'll sort itself out. And I think it slowly is, very slowly.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason I brought up like DJ, because I mean, to me, or honestly, like I would say at the very least cordial with Mike Della Pava since I met him, essentially. I don't know if we're friends, but I would definitely say we're cordial at the very least. And like that's an olive branch right there to me, to Strongman Corp.
Right.
Even though I'm a USS rep, I know if I were to call Mike up and be like, "Hey man, I need help running the show, or can you just let me borrow a piece of equipment that I know you have," kind of thing. And I know he would do it because he knows I do it for him too. You know what I mean? Like I didn't pick USS necessarily because I
I
chose aside.
chose a side. I just picked USS because there was an opportunity, and really that's all there is to it.
Well, the reality of it is that a lot of it's, for lack of a better term, is going to die off because a lot of the guys that were hardcore NAS are going to retire out of it and disappear.
The new guys,
same with USS, and the new guys they'll kind of predict or shift it which way they're going to go.
well, that even what you just described, that story of the foundation of USS and Strongman Corp, most people don't even know that story.
Absolutely,
I barely know that story. And I got in like a year after it happened.
Right.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
But
Like,
it's true because
If you
I
weren't
was,
around when it happened, you just don't know. You
well,
just
and
compete.
listen,
Yeah.
I was
'cause how
at
could you? Neither one of them's sitting around advertising
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean?
I was at nationals when people were on the mic at the awards being like, hey, we're going to show these people how this is done. We are not light shows. We are not. So you were kind of like coached that way, which I tend to still believe,
Right.
But that's just the way, that's what I know. You know what I mean? So the new guys, in the end of the day, when we're all done with this shit, it's going to go the way they want it to go. You know what I mean? The way they see fit. And
that's where I'm at, right? Like, because I'm not done competing yet. But I loved it when you talked about that in one of the podcasts. Like, you need to have something for after.
sure.
Whatever.
Transition.
Fucking knitting. It doesn't matter. You got to have something you can do.
Yeah, don't let this be your whole sense of
No.
being. Weech just talked about it too. Is like, if you think you're going to make a living at this, you're insane.
Well, and speaking as somebody who has, a heart condition, it's like nothing makes you feel like less of a man than being strong one day and then weak the next.
Well,
and
you
if
have-
your entire personality is being strong, I've got bad news for you, dude. Someday you're going to do your last squat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Last comp, last everything.
And you don't know when it happens until it's over.
Right. Like, John's really weak now, and
Very weak. Oh, it has been.
He lived through that for a long
Yes.
time. So
Only in body, right?
Yeah.
Not in
it's
spirit.
coping.
Of course.
But yeah, man, we'll wrap this thing up, man. I appreciate you coming
Oh, yeah,
out.
of course.
Thanks for making the trip.
Jesus Christ, is that 3 hours?
3 hours.
Yeah.
Good God.
We'll cut this down to 45 minutes, though.
Yes.
Right.
Because half of what
I
you said
didn't
was
notice.
crap.
Yeah.
So
Sorry,
But,
I didn't actually
still
see
small.
myself.
Still small up there.
Yeah, but the tan makes it look better.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I'll
like
zoom it out. And
Yeah,
make it look
yeah,
bigger.
yeah,
like
yeah,
a fish
yeah.
eye.
Fish
Yeah,
eye
fish eye
lens.
lens, yeah. Will's like 250
I can
now.
manipulate the video.
Right.
But
I'll make Scott look this big around.
yeah, good luck with that, buddy. But yeah, man, definitely appreciate you coming out, sharing
No,
everything,
That's a
and
good conversation.
Thanks for
man.
the invite, man.
Absolutely.
You said you wanted somebody to talk, and I was
Well,
like,
you've been around for a while, so we appreciate your.
I'd like to think
view and input and
God
everything,
damn,
so.
I feel like I've earned an invite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shit.
so give them your
Yes. So check out willdevelopment.net. If you want stones, you can still feel free to hit me up, but get ready for some sticker shock. That's what I will say, because I just don't want to do this shit anymore.
Fair enough.
I've given all I can, people.
Good.
And willdevelopment.net, still the best place to find the original wet tacky and Lucky
wipes.
Number 7 wipes,
Yes.
Lucky Number 7 liquid. Best tacky remover on the market. I will die on that hill, absolutely. And then the newest venture, if you are interested in some all-natural personal care products, I have Natty soap and buff butter, tallow, and olive oil moisturizer. That is at buffbutter.net. The links are all in my Instagram, which is Will Development. Feel free to check all that stuff out, and always power slide my DMs if anybody has any questions with anything. And I'm always open too. I do a lot more teaching nowadays
Cool.
with stones. Check out my Instagram. And yeah,
So, this podcast will be on YouTube.
Like,
Video.
subscribe.
Audio will be on Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes. So, like, subscribe, and share. Give us your feedback.
We got some other guests coming up in the next few weeks. We're starting to kind of stack people up. Anybody that wants to be on the podcast and talk shop, if you got anything interesting to talk about, promoters, athletes, anything, hit us up.
Send in your questions,
Yeah.
whether it's for a specific guest or just in general that we can talk about, or topics you would like us to talk about. May 10th, we're planning on having DJ,
cool.
Alan, and Christina.
Oh, all three at once?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be
Wow.
talking about their comp and what's coming up. Who else we got? We got a couple more on the books too.
That one.
There's a couple other that we're trying to schedule. So
Yeah,
I
just
don't want
a scheduling thing. So we're going to keep rolling, though. We appreciate everybody listening. Really appreciate you guys calling in questions and DMing questions. Kind of keeps us rolling. So
even the ones that get Will a bit angry.
yeah,
I'm a passionate
Very
man.
violent.
I'm a passionate
about
man.
your craft. That's what you should be. So.
Very passionate about my craft.
All right. Well, thank
Thank you, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.